Illinois is known for its bustling cities, scenic rivers, and grand architecture, but hidden among its skyline and historic streets are luxury hotels that are more than just elegant accommodations. They are haunted by the missing, the restless, and the unseen. Guests speak of vanishing visitors, rooms that seem alive with whispers, and corridors where footsteps echo without source. Many of these hotels were sites of tragic accidents, mysterious disappearances, and secret dealings, leaving spirits who linger, invisible but present, in the grand halls, ornate ballrooms, and opulent suites. Tonight, we will explore 25 of Illinois' most haunted luxury hotels, where guests vanish without explanation, shadowy figures glide along the hallways, and whispers of past lives drift through the air. Step carefully, for some hotels hold memories that follow you, and spirits who watch silently long after the sun has set. The Grand Meridian Hotel in Chicago stands tall at the edge of the river, its gleaming facade catching the city lights like a jewel from another era. To casual passers-by, it appears no different from the hundreds of luxury hotels scattered throughout downtown, polished, elegant, and timeless. But anyone who stayed there, even for a single night, knows the truth. Something is wrong within its walls, something old, something waiting. The hotel was built in 1912, a monument of marble, brass, and ambition. Its architect, Elias Redwood, famously described it as a gateway for travelers to rest between worlds. At the time, newspapers praised his creativity, interpreting the phrase as poetic, a nod to the hotel's opulent, dreamlike atmosphere. But over the decades, locals began repeating it with a different tone, quieter, heavier, and tinged with unease. For the Grand Meridian had a secret history of missing guests, not the kind who slipped out without paying, nor those who simply wandered off into the city. No, these disappearances were different. People vanished mid-stay, leaving luggage unpacked, clothes hanging in closets, half-eaten room service trays on pristine white linens. Security footage never showed them leaving. Room keys remained unreturned. Their names lingered in the guest log, frozen in time, unanswered. The staff learned not to speak of it. Management insisted these were rumors, exaggerations, misunderstandings blown out of proportion. But the housekeepers, the night clerks, the bellhops, they knew what they saw and what they heard. Guests often complained about shadowy figures pacing the hallways at night. Long before they knew anything about the hotel's reputation, these figures were tall but indistinct, their steps echoing softly along the carpeted corridors. Others claimed they saw faces blurred, mournful, and drained of color passing by their doors, disappearing just as quickly as they appeared. The 10th floor was said to be the worst. Lights on that level frequently flickered without explanation. Maintenance crews replaced bulbs, examined wiring, even inspected the breaker panels. But the lights continued their erratic dance, glowing bright one moment, dimming the next, sometimes plunging entire sections of the hallway into darkness. Those who stayed there said the flickering had a rhythm, like breathing, as if the building itself were alive. The mirrors caused the most fear. Every room in the Grand Meridian had a tall, ornate mirror original to the hotel's opening, framed in tarnished gold. They were elegant, a reminder of the building's history. But over time, guests began reporting that the mirrors didn't always show reflections of the rooms they were in. Some reflected darkened halls, empty lobbies, vacant stairwells, entire spaces devoid of life, even when noises from outside clearly indicated bustling activity. One woman claimed she saw her reflection walk away on its own. Another said that when she stood before the mirror, the room behind her appeared abandoned, furniture overturned, lights flickering wildly, curtains torn as though by unseen hands. When she turned around, everything was perfectly normal. But when she looked into the mirror again, the destroyed room continued, staring back at her, untouched, frozen in time. There was one unsettling pattern. Almost every guest who vanished had complained about the mirrors shortly before their disappearance. The staff, especially the older employees, had their theories. They believed the mirrors were portals of some kind, windows into the hotel's past, or maybe its future. or perhaps into something that existed alongside the hotel, but not within the physical world. Some whispered that Elias Redwood never intended the Grand Meridian to simply be a hotel. He had been obsessed with the idea of thin spaces, locations where the boundary between the living world and the beyond was fragile, permeable. The Grand Meridian, they said, was built on one such place. Those who worked the night shift often heard whispers coming from empty rooms, soft murmurs, fragments of conversation, long, slow exhalations that seemed too close, as though someone were standing right behind them. A few employees claimed they felt hands brush their arms or tap their shoulders, only to turn and find no one there. More than one housekeeper quit mid-shift, refusing to walk down certain hallways after dusk. Guests who checked out early often described the same experience, waking in the middle of the night to find the figure of a tall, shadowy man standing at the foot of their bed. He never moved, never spoke. He simply watched. Some guests said he had no face, just darkness where his features should be. Others claimed his face looked familiar, though they couldn't explain why. A few believed he was trying to speak, his mouth opening and closing silently, like someone trapped behind thick glass. The hotel's management denied every report, but the online reviews told a different story. They were filled with descriptions of footsteps following guests down empty hallways, knocks on doors when no one was outside, and mirrors that flickered with images not belonging to the present world. Videos occasionally surfaced online showing strange distortions, figures appearing behind guests for a split second, lights flashing in rooms with no power issues, or reflections that didn't match the real-time movement of the people standing in front of them. Still, the Grand Meridian remained open. People continued to book rooms. Curiosity seekers, ghost hunters, thrill chasers, and unsuspecting travelers who knew nothing of the hotel's strange history. Those who left unharmed often spoke of feeling watched the entire time. Those who stayed longer sometimes disappeared. To this day, the Grand Meridian Hotel stands as polished and immaculate as ever, welcoming guests with its luxurious lobby and warm, inviting glow. But beneath the elegance is an unspoken truth. The pacing shadows, the flickering lights, the whispering halls, they are all part of the hotel's heartbeat, a pulse that grows louder at night. The Blackstone Royale in Chicago rises above the city like a titan of old luxury. Its towering frame lined with stone carvings, arched windows, and a dark elegance that seems carved from shadow itself. For more than a century, it has been a magnet for travelers seeking sophistication, comfort, and history. Yet anyone who spends more than a night inside soon learns the truth, whispered by doormen, night clerks, and longtime residents. The Blackstone Royale carries something unseen within its walls, something cold, something hungry. The unease usually begins with the temperature. Even in the heated suites, some lined with velvet curtains, others furnished with fireplaces restored from the early 1900s, visitors report sudden drops in warmth. Guests describe feeling a chill so sharp it raises goosebumps instantly, the air becoming heavy and frigid as though something has entered the room without sound or warning. Several have said the cold begins in one corner, creeping slowly outward like invisible fog, thickening until the entire suite feels submerged in winter. Staff call these occurrences the breaths. No one knows where the term originated, but it fits. The cold doesn't feel mechanical, like a malfunctioning vent or an air leak. It feels intentional, like an exhale brushing the back of your neck, a breath that lingers long after you move away. Maintenance teams have tested every pipe, vent, and duct, but they always find the systems functioning perfectly. The temperature remains stable until it doesn't. But the chills, disturbing as they are only the beginning. What truly sets the Blackstone Royale apart from the other haunted hotels in Chicago is the disappearances, not permanent vanishings, though a few cases are murky enough that no one is entirely certain. Most guests who vanish return minutes later, shaken, confused, and unable to explain where they've been. The hotel has no blind spots. Cameras monitor every hallway, elevator, stairwell, and lounge. Yet every so often, a guest decides to take a late-night walk, perhaps unable to sleep, perhaps curious about the whispers drifting through the halls, and the cameras catch something inexplicable. A person will round a corner in the hallway and fail to appear on the other side, not slipping through a doorway, not ducking into a room. They simply never reach the next frame. Then, minutes later, usually between 3 and 10, they reappear in an entirely different section of the floor, stepping into view as though nothing happened. But their expressions reveal the truth. They always return pale, trembling, or wide-eyed with disorientation. Some cry without knowing why, others collapse. A few simply walk back to their rooms in silence, lock the door, and pack their bags at dawn. The most unsettling detail: none of them can recall where they went. Most insist they were walking the hallway as usual, before everything went black. One guest described feeling as though the air had thickened into liquid, something pulling him sideways. Another said she heard a low hum behind her before everything faded. Many report the same sensation upon returning, a brief feeling of spinning, like stumbling out of an elevator that moved too fast, and then suddenly being back in the hallway with no idea how they got there. Hotel management insists these episodes are fainting spells, panic attacks, or moments of disorientation. But the staff, especially the night crew, know better. They've witnessed guests vanish directly from view. They've seen shadows stretch unnaturally in the hallways during the late hours. They've heard footsteps echo behind them, only to turn and find the corridor empty. One longtime concierge, who worked at the hotel for more than 30 years before retiring, shared a story with a visiting journalist who was researching Chicago's haunted sites. The concierge explained that the hotel was built on land once occupied by a towering mansion known for secret rooms and underground corridors built by a reclusive industrialist obsessed with spiritualism. The mansion burned to the ground in 1894 after a mysterious fire that left no explanation. Though the mansion itself was lost, parts of its foundation were incorporated into the hotel's design. Some believed the mansion's hidden paths were never truly sealed. Others believed the mansion's hauntings were simply inherited by the building that replaced it. Current staff have their own stories. Housekeepers on the 12th floor refuse to work alone. They claim that whenever they step into certain hallways, the lights flicker and the air pressure changes, as if the hotel were inhaling around them. Some have heard faint whispers behind closed doors, whispers that stop the moment the door opens. One maid said she saw a figure gliding down the hall, but when she hurried around the corner, no one was there. Guests report the same shadowy presence in their rooms. Sometimes a figure appears in their peripheral vision. Sometimes they hear footsteps near the bed in the darkness. One businessman staying on the 9th floor woke to find the cold so intense his breath clouded the air. As he sat up, the room lights flickered, and he felt someone sit on the edge of the bed, though no one was visible. He checked out at sunrise. The disappearances tend to occur between 2 and 4 a.m., a window staff quietly referred to as the roaming hour. During this time, the hotel shifts. Hallways feel longer, corners seem sharper, mirrors stretch shadows into impossible shapes, and those who dare to wander risk slipping into whatever hidden space lies beneath the surface of the Blackstone Royale. Some believe the disappearances lead guests into remnants of the old mansion rooms or tunnels preserved in some fractured echo of reality. Others think the hotel exists partly in another dimension, a thin place where lost moments flicker like dying lights. A few suggest the spirits of the mansion's former residents roam the corridors, searching for company, pulling the living into the spaces where they still wander. Whatever the explanation, one thing remains certain. At the Blackstone Royale, the air grows cold for a reason. The hallways do not always lead where they should, and those who walk alone after midnight may find themselves pulled, briefly but completely, into a place the human mind was never meant to see. The Windsor Estate Hotel in Oak Brook stands like a timeless sentinel along a quiet stretch of manicured lawns and old oak trees. Its grand facade drawing visitors with an elegance that borders on the hypnotic. Once a private mansion belonging to one of Illinois' wealthiest early industrial families, the estate transitioned into a luxury hotel decades ago. Yet for all its charm, refined rooms, and 5-star reputation, Guests have long whispered about the strange presence that lingers behind its velvet curtains and polished marble floors. It is a place where history never fully let go, and where every corridor seems to breathe with the weight of forgotten stories. Many visitors arrive unaware of the hotel's supernatural reputation. They check in expecting a peaceful retreat, charmed by the antique chandeliers and the scent of cedarwood that drifts from the lobby fireplace. But as night falls, the Windsor estate reveals a different face, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. The most unsettling reports begin with the rooms themselves. Guests often describe returning from dinner only to find their doors locked from the inside, even though no one is there. Staff members have had to use master keys to open them, only to be met with empty chambers, undisturbed bedding, and the faint lingering chill of something unseen. These incidents are not limited to any single wing. One night, a couple staying in one of the estate's oldest suites heard their door click shut while they were inside preparing for bed. The husband reached for the handle, finding it jammed, as if someone had bolted it from the opposite side. Moments later, the lights flickered, the air grew heavy, and they felt the unmistakable sensation of someone standing close behind them. When the door finally opened on its own, the hall outside was silent. The security footage from that wing later showed no movement at all. During that time, no staff, no guests, not even a shadow. And yet something had been there. The hallways of the Windsor estate hold their own catalog of mysteries. Several guests have encountered figures drifting silently near their room stall, silhouettes dressed in outdated clothing, or faint outlines barely distinguishable from the dim glow of the wall sconces. These figures never speak, never acknowledge the living, and dissolve the instant someone attempts to approach them. A businessman staying on the third floor once described seeing what he thought was a lost guest wandering near the elevators. As he hurried forward to help, the figure turned the corner, and when he followed, the hallway was completely empty. A staff member listening to his story only nodded, explaining that the third floor had always been a hotspot for apparitions. Some employees claimed the spirits belonged to members of the original family who built the estate. Old photographs displayed near the lobby show them standing on the sweeping staircase, stern-looking parents, elegantly dressed daughters, and a young son whose eyes seemed to follow onlookers. Though no tragic event tied specifically to the family is well documented, former housekeepers who worked at the estate before it became a hotel spoke of odd occurrences even back then. Doors that closed on their own, footsteps in locked rooms, and the strange sensation of being watched from the upper landings were all common accounts. If the family did remain behind, perhaps they simply never left their beloved home, watching as time transformed their private world into a public refuge. But the most chilling phenomenon stems from the ballroom, an ornate, high-ceilinged chamber overlooking the garden, where sunlight dances through sweeping windows during the day. At night, those same windows become the focal point of the hotel's darkest legend. Many guests walking the grounds or returning from late dinners have reported hearing faint cries drifting from the ballroom. The sound is soft at first, almost like the distant call of someone in distress, carried by the wind. Yet as one draws closer, the tone becomes unmistakably human, sharp, pleading, and filled with sorrow. Those brave enough to investigate find the ballroom dark and empty. The windows remain shut, the heavy curtains still, the crystal chandeliers silent above. But as soon as they step away, the cries often start again. Some visitors have reported seeing pale faces reflected in the ballroom windows, faces that vanished the moment they looked directly at them. One groundskeeper recounted arriving early one morning and hearing what sounded like muffled sobbing coming from the second-floor ballroom. He climbed the steps, opened the door, and found nothing but cold air and the faint smell of old perfume lingering in the corners. He never walked into the building alone again. Theories circulate quietly among the hotel staff, though few will speak openly to guests about them. Some believe the ballroom once hosted a private event that ended in heartbreaker, lost love, an unexpected death, a tragedy buried by time and reputation. The old estate records are incomplete, leaving room for speculation. Others think the spirits are simply remnants of the mansion's busiest years, echoing memories that refuse to fade. The cries, they say, might not belong to a single spirit, but could be the collective emotion of all who pass through the ballroom as grandeur and sorrow. Despite these unsettling occurrences, the Windsor Estate Hotel continues to thrive. Guests still flock to its lavish suites, candlelit dining rooms, and picturesque gardens, but even the most skeptical visitors admit that something about the place feels different after midnight. There is a tension in the air, a sense that the walls themselves remember more than they reveal. Lights flicker in empty corridors, distant footsteps echo where no one walks, and the quiet rustling of unseen movement lingers just long enough to make the heart race. Those who stay at the Windsor Estate rarely forget their experience. Some leave with stories they eagerly share, thrilled by the brush with the unknown. Others leave unsettled, carrying a lingering sense of being watched long after they depart. And for a few, the memory of locked doors, vanishing figures, and soft cries from the ballroom windows becomes a whisper that follows them, reminding them that some places are never truly silent, never fully empty, and never willing to let their past fade into the night. The Lakeside Elegance Hotel in Evanston stands just steps from the calm shoreline of Lake Michigan, its grand exterior gleaming with the charm of another era. Built in the 1920s as a luxurious escape for wealthy travelers, the hotel still carries the aura of its golden age: polished brass, sweeping staircases, and the faint scent of lavender that lingers in the lobby. To the casual visitor, it feels like a place carved out of time. But those who stay long enough, especially after sundown, discover that the past has never really left. Shadows whisper here, footsteps wander without owners, and echoes from another generation weave themselves into the stillness of the night. Guests often arrive enchanted by the hotel's refinement. The lake breeze, soft and cool, drifts through the arched windows. The hallways are wide and elegant, lined with framed photographs of the hotel's earliest staff bellhops in crisp uniforms, housekeepers posing proudly beside brass carts, and smiling receptionists standing behind polished desks. These images give the hotel a sense of continuity, a reminder of its history and the people who shaped it. Yet for some, these old portraits carry an uncanny message, as if their silent subjects are still watching. The whispers often begin on the second or fourth floors, where the oldest guest rooms remain almost untouched since the hotel's early years. Visitors walking past vacant rooms at night report hearing murmured conversations, soft, indistinct, and impossible to trace. Some describe the voices as playful, like friends chatting quietly behind a closed door. Others say the tone is somber, even distressed, as if someone is confiding fears in the dark. But every time a guest stops to listen closely, the whispers cease, replaced by total silence. Staff members performing rounds have heard the same phenomenon. They check the rooms, find them empty, and return to their stations with a chill creeping up their spine. One family staying on the fourth floor recounted hearing a woman's voice humming an old, unfamiliar tune from the room next to theirs. When they asked at the front desk if another guest was staying there, they were told the room had been vacant for 2 days. Another guest, a graduate student visiting for a conference, heard his name whispered from behind a half-open door. When he pushed the door fully open, he felt a cold breeze rush past him, although the room's windows were firmly shut. The footsteps are, if anything, even more common. Late-night wanderers, insomniacs, and guests returning from the hotel bar all report hearing the faint tread of someone walking ahead of them through the long hallways. The sound is precise, heel, toe, echoing steadily against a polished tile. But the halls remain empty. Some guests try to follow the sound, only to have it shift behind them or fade suddenly at the end of a corridor. Others freeze in place, realizing the steps are approaching them slowly, methodically, though no one can be seen. A businessman staying on the third floor once told the concierge he heard footsteps pacing outside his room for almost an hour. Each time he looked through the peephole, the hallway was deserted. When he finally opened the door, the footsteps ceased immediately. The air felt colder than the rest of the floor. A housekeeper recalled starting her shift early one morning when she heard someone walking alongside her down the back hallway. She assumed it was another staff member until the footsteps suddenly stopped. She looked behind her and found herself completely alone. But the most unsettling phenomenon at the Lakeside Elegance Hotel involves the staff who vanished long ago. In the early decades of the hotel's operation, stories circulated about employees who disappeared under mysterious circumstances, some during fierce winter storms, others during quiet nights when the hotel was half empty. One bellhop, a young man known for his cheerful demeanor, left on an errand to deliver extra linens to a guest's room and was never seen again. His disappearance sparked a frantic search, but no trace of him was ever found. Another staff member, a maid with a reputation for punctuality, failed to report for her morning shift. Her room was untouched, her uniform neatly folded, but she had vanished without a single sign of struggle. While these cases eventually faded into local memory, the hotel's guests continued reporting strange encounters. Several visitors have claimed to see a bellhop in an outdated, uniform-pressed navy fabric with gold buttons walking briskly down the hall with fresh towels. He never responds to greetings, never acknowledges anyone, and always turns a corner before disappearing entirely. A woman staying in a lakeside suite insisted she saw a maid quietly polishing the doorknob of the adjoining room. When she approached to thank her, the maid turned, gave a faint smile, and dissolved into thin air, leaving only a faint scent of old-fashioned soap behind. Other sightings involve older staff members whose photographs still hang on the lobby walls. Guests have approached the front desk to compliment the friendliness of an older gentleman who helped carry their bags, only to be told that no such staff member exists, and that the man they described matches a former employee who died over 50 years ago. The resemblance in these accounts is always uncanny, right down to the slight limp he was known to have. Despite its hauntings, the Lakeside Elegance Hotel remains one of Evanston's most beloved landmarks. Its charm is undeniable, its service impeccable, and its view of the lake unmatched. Many guests leave with fond memories, never experiencing anything out of the ordinary. But those who do encounter the whispers, the footsteps, or the vanished staff find themselves forever changed. They speak of the hotel with a mixture of awe and unease, recognizing that beneath its polished beauty lies a world suspended between the living and the dead. For, at the Lakeside Elegance Hotel, the past is not forgotten. It moves silently through the halls, watches from behind closed doors, and whispers its presence from rooms that should be empty. And sometimes, if the night is quiet and the lake breathes still, a long-lost staff member may briefly step back into the world, carrying out duties they never finished, unaware that time has long since passed them by. The Imperial Grand in Naperville has long been admired as one of the city's most opulent landmarks, a place where marble floors reflect the glow of crystal chandeliers, where hushed conversations fill the grand lobby, and where every room seems touched by elegance. Built nearly a century ago as a showpiece of architectural ambition, the hotel once hosted lavish galas, political gatherings, and celebrations that carried on late into the night. Today, it remains a favorite destination for visitors seeking luxury. Yet beneath its polished surface lies a history marked by whispers, shadows, and unexplained disappearances. For those who stay overnight, the Imperial Grand is far more than an ordinary hotel. It is a place where the past walks freely and where not everyone leaves. Guests who wander the hotel after dark often report seeing figures gliding through the ballrooms, silent, elegant forms dressed in attire from another era. The Grand Ballroom is the heart of these sightings. Its towering windows overlook the courtyard, and its polished floors shine like still water. During the day, sunlight filters through the room, giving it a sense of warmth and life. But when night settles, the atmosphere shifts. Some guests who pass by the ballroom late at night claim to see pale shapes drifting beneath the chandeliers, their movements fluid and graceful, almost like dancers frozen between worlds. A young woman staying on the 7th floor once returned to the lobby around midnight after a late dinner. She passed the ballroom and paused, captivated by the sight of what looked like a formal event unfolding inside. Figures moved lightly across the floor, brushing past one another without sound. The chandeliers glowed brighter than she had ever seen them, and a faint shimmer clung to the air. But as she stepped closer, the scene flickered, dimmed, and vanished entirely. The lights were off. The chairs were stacked. The room was empty. Others describe seeing a lone woman in a silver gown drifting just beyond the ballroom entrance. She never speaks and never acknowledges anyone. She simply moves with a haunting grace, disappearing when approached. Some believe she was once a socialite who frequented the hotel's grand galas in the 1930s. Others think she is tied to a tragedy the hotel has long refused to acknowledge. Whatever her story, her presence has become a signature part of the Imperial Grand's enduring mystery. But the apparitions are not the only haunting element that defines the hotel's unsettling reputation. The disappearances, quiet, unexplained, and chilling, have left the deepest mark. Over the decades, several guests have vanished from the Imperial Grand under circumstances that defy logic. What makes each incident even more disturbing is the state in which their rooms are found. The beds remain perfectly made, the linens untouched as if no one had slept there. But the guests' personal belongings, wallets, purses, suitcases, shoes, and clothing are scattered across the floors and countertops as though dropped in a hurry or brushed aside by invisible hands. One such case involved a traveling salesman who checked into the hotel on a warm evening in late summer. He was friendly, talkative, and stayed in touch with his family throughout his travels. But on the morning he was scheduled to check out, he failed to appear. Hotel staff knocked repeatedly, then used the master key. His suitcase lay open on the floor, clothes strewn across the carpet. His shoes were placed by the bed, perfectly aligned. His wallet and watch rested on the nightstand, but the bed itself was pristine, untouched, and the salesman was nowhere to be found. The door showed no signs of forced entry, and security footage revealed only the man entering the room, never leaving. Another incident involved a pair of friends who visited Naperville for a weekend getaway. They were seen laughing in the lobby late one Friday evening before heading to their 8th-floor room. By Saturday morning, they were gone. Their luggage was found scattered across the room, as though hastily unpacked in the dark. One of the women's phones was left on the bathroom counter. The screen cracked. The other's purse sat on the floor, with its contents spilled in a chaotic arc. But again, the beds were untouched, neatly arranged, as though housekeeping had just finished preparing them. These disappearances have spurred countless theories. Some say the hotel is built on land with a dark past, though no records confirm the rumors. Others believe the spirits roaming the ballrooms are somehow connected to the missing guests, that perhaps those who vanish do not leave the Imperial Grand, but instead join the gliding forms that haunt its empty spaces. Staff members speak cautiously about their experiences, especially those who work the night shift. One security guard recalls checking the ballroom cameras after hearing what sounded like footsteps inside. Though the room appeared empty, a faint blur drifted across the screen, an indistinct movement that lasted only seconds before fading. Another employee reported seeing a shadowy figure cross the hallway outside the ballroom. When he walked in to investigate, the room felt unnaturally cold, and the lights flickered overhead. Housekeepers have their own stories. One woman, who has worked at the Imperial Grand for nearly 20 years, explains that certain rooms feel heavier than others, almost as if the air itself resists being disturbed. She refuses to clean the 7th-floor corner suite alone, after once hearing soft whispers behind her as she made the bed. When she turned, the room was empty, yet a scarf she had folded lay on the floor, as though pulled by unseen hands. Despite the eerie events, the Imperial Grand continues to operate with a reputation for excellence. Guests book rooms for weddings, corporate retreats, and romantic weekends without ever suspecting the shadows that linger behind its pristine image. Yet every so often, a visitor leaves with a story they cannot explain, a glimpse of a phantom dancer, a whisper carried down an empty corridor, or the unsettling sense of being watched in the stillness of night. The Imperial Grand remains a place where luxury and mystery intertwine, where figures glide silently through ballrooms that once overflowed with life, and where the vanished leave only scattered belongings behind. For those who dare to spend the night, the hotel offers more than a state offers a glimpse into a world that refuses to fade, a place where the past is not gone but merely waiting, drifting through the halls of a grand estate that will never truly rest. The Shadowview Hotel in Springfield rises from a quiet corner of the city, like a relic untouched by time, its dark brick facade casting long afternoon shadows across the sidewalk. Once a beacon of luxury during its grand opening in the early 1900s, the hotel still carries the charm of its golden, arrow-ornate columns, velvet-draped windows, and chandeliers that glow like frozen fire. But beneath its elegance lies an atmosphere that unsettles guests almost immediately. Something stirs within its hallways, something cold and watchful, lurking just out of sight. Many visitors leave with stories they can't forget, and some leave without explanation at all. Guests stepping through the revolving doors often feel the first hint of the hotel, a strange presence, a sudden drop in temperature, a cool draft that slides around the ankles like an invisible hand. It happens regardless of the season. Even in the height of summer, when Springfield bakes beneath relentless heat, the lobby of the Shadowview Hotel carries an unnatural chill. Staff dismiss it with polite smiles, citing old ventilation systems or drafts coming through the doors. But those who stay longer quickly understand that these cold currents are anything but random. The temperature dips come without warning, drifting through hallways, brushing across the backs of guests' necks, or pooling around doorways as though something is passing through. One couple describes sitting in the hotel's historic lounge, enjoying a late-night drink, when the air suddenly turned frigid around them. Their breath fogged, the lights dimmed slightly, and the chandelier above swayed, as if disturbed by unseen movement. Just as abruptly as it came, the cold vanished, leaving the room still and warm once more. The bartender later admitted that the lounge occasionally reacts like that, especially late at night, when the building seems most aware of its occupants. But the temperature shifts are nothing compared to the disturbing phenomenon of vanishing visitors. Over the years, guests have reported seeing people, sometimes strangers, sometimes those they met earlier, who seem to disappear without explanation. A businessman staying on the 5th floor swore he saw a woman in a blue dress step into the elevator ahead of him. When he followed seconds later, the elevator was empty, its doors closing slowly as if nothing had happened. Another guest claimed she shared a brief conversation with an elderly man in the corridor outside her room. She described him in detail to hotel staff, only to be told that no one matching his appearance had checked in for weeks. More unsettling still are the disappearances that leave behind an inexplicable quiet. A teenage guest reported walking down the hallway toward her family's room when she saw a small child chasing a ball around the corner. She heard soft laughter echoing off the walls. But when she turned the corner, the hallway was empty, the air cold, and the faint sound of giggling faded as if swallowed by the building itself. Despite these eerie sightings, the most notorious feature of the Shadowview Hotel, and the reason many refuse to stay on the upper floors, is the behavior of the hallway mirrors. The hotel's corridors are lined with tall, antique mirrors framed in tarnished silver. Guests often admire their vintage beauty during the day, unaware of the unsettling reflections they offer at night. Late in the evenings, visitors walking alone report noticing figures standing behind them in the mirror, shadowy, motionless shapes that do not appear when they turn around. A man traveling for work once described returning to his room after midnight. As he walked past one of the large mirrors, he saw a reflection of himself, and behind him, the indistinct outline of a tall figure. Thinking someone was approaching, he spun quickly. The hallway was empty. When he looked back at the mirror, the figure remained, this time slightly closer to him. He hurried away, refusing to glance at another reflective surface for the rest of his stay. Another guest, a woman attending a conference, saw a figure in the mirror standing just inches behind her, a woman with long hair covering her face, dressed in an outdated gown. She gasped and whipped around, heart pounding. There was no one there. When she turned back again, the mirror showed only her own trembling reflection. She checked out early the next morning. Housekeepers report similar experiences during their early morning shifts. One staff member admitted that while vacuuming the 4th floor hallway, she saw a man reflected behind her, leaning slightly forward, as if watching her. She turned, expecting perhaps a guest waiting to pass. Nothing. When she looked again, the mirror showed only the hallway stretching behind. She refused to work alone after that day. There is no official explanation for the shadows that make themselves visible only through reflections. Some believe the mirrors hold the memories of past guests, those who died in the hotel, those who never checked out, or those who slipped so quietly into its walls that only their echoes remain. Others think the mirrors act as windows to something unseen, revealing what exists between the lingering past and the living present. The hotel management avoids discussing these incidents. They maintain a professional silence, responding politely to questions and assuring guests that the Shadowview Hotel is perfectly safe. But their careful avoidance only deepens the mystery. Rumors swirl among Springfield local stories of secret rooms, tragic events, and spirits that roam freely when the lights go dim. No official records confirm these tales, yet the experiences of guests speak loudly enough. Still, the Shadowview Hotel continues to draw visitors from near and far. Its beauty, its history, and the allure of the unknown make it an irresistible destination. Some guests seek the paranormal, hoping to glimpse a figure in the mirror or feel a cold draft that signals another presence. Others arrive unaware, seeking only a peaceful night's sleep. For them, the hotel's secrets reveal themselves slowly, in fleeting moments, a whisper of cold air, a reflection that doesn't belong, a passing stranger who vanishes too quickly. In the Shadowview Hotel, the line between the seen and unseen blurs. The living walk beside figures they cannot perceive, and the mirrors reflect the presence of those long gone. Here, every hallway carries a chill of something watching, waiting, drifting through the silent corridors. And once night falls, every reflective surface becomes a reminder that in this place, you are never truly alone. The Astoria in Peoria stands like a monument to another era, its towering brick structure and grand archways hinting at decades of lavish events, glittering celebrations, and elegant evenings long forgotten. Built in the 1920s, it once served as the city's most prestigious hotel, hosting dignitaries, glamorous parties, and orchestras that filled its ballrooms with music late into the night. Today, it still carries that grandeur: polished floors, sweeping staircases, and chandeliers suspended like frozen bursts of light. Yet beneath its restored beauty lies an atmosphere heavy with echoes of the past, whispers of old melodies, and figures who glide through the corridors long after the guests of its golden age have vanished. Those who visit the Astoria often speak first about the faint music that drifts from its empty ballrooms. It usually begins at dusk, just when the last of the day's light filters through the tall windows and casts long shadows across the lobby. The melody is soft piano notes, gentle waltzes, and occasional bursts of distant applause. It feels as though an orchestra is tuning itself far away, its notes rising and falling with an almost nostalgic rhythm. A young couple staying on the 4th floor once described walking toward the ballroom after dinner. The hallway was quiet, yet they heard a lilting tune that seemed to float just ahead of them. The ballroom doors were closed, but the music grew louder as they approached. When the man pushed the door open, expecting perhaps a private event or rehearsal, the room was completely dark. The floor shone in the faint glow of emergency lights, dust motes drifting through still air. The instruments played on for a moment longer before fading into silence, leaving the couple frozen in the doorway, listening to the emptiness. Guests attending conferences or weddings recount similar experiences. Musicians warming up in rooms that should be vacant. Soft laughter drifting down the hall. The clinking of glasses echoing from unseen toasts. Once, a security guard making his nightly rounds heard a full waltz playing inside the ballroom. When he entered, the room was vacant, yet the air felt charged, as if hundreds of dancers had just left moments before. But the music is not the only lingering remnant of the Astoria's glamorous past. The grand staircase's 2 curved sets of marble steps that dominate the hotel's central atrium hold their own mysteries. These staircases were once the pride of the hotel, where guests in gowns and tuxedos descended into the ballroom for an evening of elegance. Today, they remain a centerpiece, but many visitors report seeing figures glide down the steps long after the crowds have disappeared. A businessman staying at the hotel recounted waking early one morning and heading down the stairs toward the lobby. Halfway down, he noticed a woman in a dark, flowing gown descending gracefully ahead of him. Her steps were smooth, almost too smooth, as though she were floating rather than walking. He called out to her, thinking she might be heading to an early breakfast event. She did not respond. When she reached the bottom, she turned slightly as if acknowledging him, then vanished into thin air. No doors opened, no shadows shifted. She was simply gone. Another guest, an older woman visiting Peoria to explore its historical sites, said she saw a man in an old-fashioned suit gliding down the staircase late one night, and as he reached the last step, he began to fade, becoming more transparent until his form dissolved completely. She later admitted she could still picture the expression on his face, a serene, almost wistful look, as though he were remembering something from long ago. The lack of footprints is what unsettles people the most. Dust gathers easily on the staircase's edges, yet no matter how many reports come in, these ghostly figures never leave a single mark. No impressions, no scuffs, no smudges. It's as if they glide through the Astoria, not as echoes of the past, but as remnants of something caught between worlds. Staff members have their own stories. A housekeeper working the night shift once saw a group of elegantly dressed figures descending one of the staircases together. They moved in unison, silent and fluid, like dancers rehearsing a choreographed routine. She blinked, startled, and there were gone only the faint scent of old perfume lingering in the air. Another employee cleaning the lobby late at night reported seeing a man in a tailcoat standing at the top of the staircase, his silhouette sharp against the dim hallway lights. He slowly began to descend, growing more translucent with each step until he disappeared completely by the fifth stair. Even those who never witnessed these figures find themselves feeling watched or accompanied while on the staircase. Some describe a gentle presence beside them, the faint whisper of fabric brushing against a railing, or a cool breeze moving past their shoulders as though someone has slipped by. Others feel a sudden heaviness, a rush of nostalgia or sadness that is difficult to explain, as though the air itself is filled with memories. While these encounters might unsettle some, the hotel remains a beloved landmark. Visitors from around the country choose the Astoria for its charm, its beauty, and its history. Some arrive because of the story's ghost hunters, paranormal investigators, curious travelers eager to experience the hotel's strange allure. But many come unaware, seeking only a peaceful stay, unaware that they may find themselves sharing the halls with figures from another century. The Astoria exists in a delicate balance between past and present. The music that whispers through its ballrooms belongs to nights long gone, yet it continues to play for those willing to listen. The figures gliding down its staircases seem forever caught in the rhythm of their final dance, leaving no footprints but making an unforgettable impression on all who see them. For at the Astoria, time does not simply pass, it lingers. It echoes. It drifts through marble hallways and polished floors, shimmering just beyond the corner of your eye. And as long as the hotel stands, the music of its past will never truly fade. The Marquette Mansion Hotel in Rockford stands as one of the city's most unsettling landmarks, a towering red brick relic with ornate balconies, heavy oak doors, and windows that seem to watch every passerby. Once a proud estate built by a wealthy industrial family, the mansion was converted into a hotel in the 1940s. Through the years, it gained a quiet but persistent reputation for strange occurrences, unexplained disappearances, and ghostly figures that roam its dimly lit halls. Even today, travelers speak of doors that lock themselves from the inside, nightmares that feel more like intrusions, and a lingering fear that something stands just beyond their sight. Many visitors arrive unaware of its haunted prestige, drawn in by its charming facade and the idea of experiencing a historic stay. But the moment they enter the lobby, they often describe an unexpected shift in atmosphere. The air grows heavy, as if the mansion is exhaling old memories into the present. The grand staircase curves upward like a beckoning arm, while portraits of past residents line the walls. Their painted eyes seem to follow guests as they check in, silently observing the newcomers who dare to sleep within the mansion's aging walls. Reports from guests are unsettlingly consistent, especially regarding rooms on the third and fourth floors. It often begins with something smaller, lights flickering for no reason, faucets turning on and off during the night, or the sensation of being watched. Then comes the more disturbing pattern: doors that lock themselves from the inside, even when no one is in the room. Staff often receive calls from confused guests asking for help, only for employees to arrive and find the door bolted shut. Even with master keys, the locks refuse to budge. But the moment a staff member slides a maintenance card underneath or taps lightly on the frame, the lock clicks open by itself, as if an unseen hand has granted permission. According to longtime employees, this phenomenon has been happening for decades. Some believe the mansion's original owners, the Marquette family, still linger in the rooms they once occupied. Old records show that the family experienced significant tragedy. The mother died unexpectedly in her sleep. One of the daughters vanished without explanation, and the eldest son became a recluse before taking his own life. Their stories are etched into local history, and many feel their unresolved lives echo through the mansion's walls. Guests also report vivid, disturbing nightmares during their stay. These dreams aren't typical. They involve shadowy figures standing over the bed, cold hands pressing against the chest, or footsteps pacing through the room while the dreamer lies, unable to move. People who have experienced these nightmares describe waking up drenched in sweat, convinced someone had been in the room with them. Some refuse to spend a second night in the hotel, checking out before dawn with shaking hands and pale faces. Others insist the dreams feel too real, almost as if the mansion itself is reaching into their minds, showing them fragments of the past. The most unsettling stories involve guests who vanish during the night. These incidents are rare, but they have occurred often enough to become part of the hotel's legend. In each case, the missing guests were last seen entering their rooms alone. When staff investigated the next morning, they found the rooms locked from the inside, windows untouched, and belongings left neatly on the floor. Beds looked slept in, but there were no signs of forced entry or escape. Police reports note no evidence of foul play, yet no one has been able to explain how a person could disappear without leaving a trace. Some suspect the mansion hides secret passages from its original design, while others believe something in the house pulls people into another realm entirely. Employees have their own accounts, many of which they hesitate to share with outsiders. One night shift worker recalls walking past room 412 when he noticed the door slightly open. Believing the room was vacant, he pushed the door gently and stepped inside. The room was dark, but the silhouette of a man stood by the window. Thinking it was a guest, he apologized and reached for the light switch. When the lights flickered on, the room was empty. The figure had vanished without a sound. As he stepped back into the hallway, the door slammed shut behind him, locking on its own. Another staff member, a housekeeper, who worked at the hotel for more than 20 years, often refuses to step onto the fourth floor. She claims she once saw an elderly woman in period clothing gliding down the hallway, her feet never touching the carpet. The woman turned her head slowly, her face pale and expressionless, before fading into the wall. The housekeeper insists it wasn't fatigue or imagination. She remembers the details clearly, right down to the embroidered lace on the spirit's dress. Despite its eerie reputation, people continue to visit the Marquette Mansion Hotel, drawn either by curiosity or the thrill of experiencing the unknown. Paranormal investigators frequent the place, setting up cameras and audio equipment in hopes of capturing evidence of the supernatural. Some have recorded faint whispers, muffled footsteps, and sudden temperature drops in the most unpredictable corners of the hotel. Others walk away convinced the mansion has an energy unlike any other, one that interacts with visitors in ways no modern building could replicate. The hotel continues to operate, its history intertwined with its hauntings. Management never confirms the stories but doesn't deny them either. They simply assure guests that the mansion is safe, though some might disagree after spending a night within its walls. The Marquette Mansion remains alive in its own haunting way, filled with echoes of the past that refuse to fade. For many, the mansion is more than a place to sleep. as a lingering reminder that some stories never truly end. Within its locked rooms, silent corridors, and restless dreams, the spirits of the Marquette family and forgotten guests seem to wander endlessly, still searching, still waiting, and still holding tightly to the mysteries that keep the hotel alive with whispered dread. The Royal Albion in Aurora stands proudly at the edge of downtown, its grand white facade gleaming beneath the city's changing light. Once a luxurious getaway for wealthy travelers, the hotel has long carried an air of elegance, arched windows, crystal chandeliers, and velvet-lined corridors that wind through its historic structure. Yet behind this charm lies a far more unsettling reputation, whispered among guests, staff, and locals alike. The Royal Albion is known not just for its beauty, but for its uncanny ability to warp reality, creating moments where time and structure seem to shift, as if the hotel itself is alive and reshaping its own architecture. Many visitors speak of hearing full conversations coming from suites confirmed to be empty, while others vanish only to reappear hours or days later with stories of wandering through hallways that no one recognizes, insisting they were led by something unseen. Guests who stay in the older wing built in the early 1900s often report the earliest signs of strangeness. As they settle into their rooms at night, they hear voices through the walls, not muffled or distant, but clear as though a group of people were gathered just on the other side of the door. The conversations are peculiar, old-fashioned language, .com discussions about events long past, or fragments of arguments between people who sound like they no longer belong to this century. When guests call the front desk to complain about the noise, staff check the suites and report back that they are completely vacant. Yet the voices continue, sometimes drifting down the corridor even after the door is opened, as if the sound is carried by a presence moving just ahead of anyone who tries to follow. More unnerving still are the guests who vanish quietly, without struggle, often in the middle of the night. These disappearances are not treated as criminal cases, though they leave staff shaken and confused. People simply fail to check out, their beds rumpled and luggage left behind. Security footage frequently shows the missing individuals wandering down hallways alone, appearing calm, sometimes even smiling faintly, as if following someone or something just out of the camera's view. Then they turn a corner, and the footage ends. No exit, no return, just a blank stretch of hallway where no one else appears for hours. What sets the Royal Albion apart from other haunted locations is the peculiar fact that some of these vanished guests eventually return. They reappear without warning, often in the lobby, the garden courtyard, or even a random hallway, confused, exhausted, and unable to remember how they got back. One returning visitor, a middle-aged teacher from Oregon, was discovered sitting on the floor near a supply closet on the third floor, staring blankly at the wall. When staff approached, he whispered, "I kept walking, but the hallways kept changing. I thought I heard someone calling my name." He claimed he had been lost for maybe an hour, but according to the hotel's timeline, he had been missing for nearly 2 full days. Another guest, this one a college student traveling with friends, vanished from her room after excusing herself to use the restroom. Her friends assumed she was taking a long shower, but when she didn't respond to knocks, they alerted staff. The door was locked from the inside, and when it was opened, the room was empty. She didn't reappear until the following morning, found curled up under one of the dining tables in the ballroom. She was terrified, shaking as she explained that she had followed the sound of footsteps down an unfamiliar hallway. She claimed the hall was long and dimly lit, lined with portraits she had never seen before. At the end of it, she heard a woman whisper, "This way." After that, everything went black. Staff members have their own unsettling accounts. A night shift security guard, employed at the hotel for more than 10 years, once followed the sound of laughter near Suite 509. He swore he heard at least 3 women speaking softly inside. When he opened the door with his master key, intending to warn them about quiet hours, the suite was pitch black and completely unoccupied. As he stepped backward into the hallway, the voices resumed behind him, now sounding closer than ever, though the room remained empty. Housekeepers often avoid the west corridor on the 6th floor after dark. They report hearing footsteps following them, stopping whenever they turn around. Some have seen figures briefly reflected in the polished brass sconce-stall silhouettes that vanish the moment someone looks directly. Others claim that as they push their cleaning carts, the corridor seems to stretch just a little longer than usual, as though the end of the hall is being pulled farther away with each step. Local historians believe the strange phenomena may relate to the original structure beneath the hotel. Before the Royal Albion was built, the land held a large estate belonging to a wealthy family known for their secretive lifestyle. Rumors suggest parts of the property included hidden servants' passages and unfinished basements that were never documented. When the hotel was constructed, the builders may have unintentionally incorporated these forgotten spaces into its foundation, creating a labyrinth of corridors that don't exist on any blueprint. Some speculate that the spirits of the former residents wander these hidden areas, guiding or trapping unsuspecting guests. Yet these theories do little to calm the nerves of those who have encountered the hotel's shifting architecture firsthand. What unsettles survivors most is the sense that they weren't just lost, they were led. Every returning guest insists they heard someone ahead of them, whispering directions or urging them forward. The voices were never threatening, they say, but persistent, coaxing them deeper into parts of the hotel that should not exist. Despite the stories, the Royal Albion remains fully operational. Travelers continue to book rooms, drawn by curiosity, thrill-seeking, or simple unawareness. Most experience nothing unusual and leave with fond memories of an elegant stay. But for others, the hotel becomes a maze of illusions, hidden hallways, ghostly conversations, and disorienting shifts in space. For these guests, the experience is a haunting reminder that some buildings hold on to their past so tightly that they blur the boundaries between reality and memory. Within the Royal Albion, echoes of forgotten lives wander endlessly, whispering through empty suites, guiding the lost through corridors unseen by the living. And for those who listen too closely, the hotel may open doors that lead not to comfort and rest, but to the strange and shifting heart of its haunted legacy. The Belmont Hotel in Springfield stands at the crossroads between polished elegance and quiet unease. Its century-old brick exterior hiding a long history of unexplained occurrences. For thousands of guests over the decades, the hotel has been a place of rest, comfort, and timeless charm. But for others, those who happen to linger in the corridors at the wrong hour or pass through the lobby when the air turns unusually, still the Belmont becomes something entirely different. They leave not with fond travel memories, but with the lingering sensation that they were being watched, followed, or silently studied by something that did not belong to the living. Most who encounter the strange happenings describe them as sudden, fleeting, and disturbingly vivid. Figures appear silently along the hotel's narrow hallways, often just ahead of guests walking alone. These apparitions are not translucent or ghostly in the traditional sense. Instead, they look startlingly real, like ordinary people standing with their backs turned or peering over their shoulders. But the moment someone approaches, the figures glide effortlessly behind a wall or slip into a corner where no door exists. For an instant, they appear solid. Then they vanish as if absorbed by the shadows themselves. One of the most frequently reported locations is the East Corridor on the 4th floor. This hallway, originally part of the older section of the building, tends to grow unnaturally quiet after midnight. Guests walking through have felt compelled to stop, certain they saw someone standing at the far end. Sometimes, the figure is a woman, dressed in outdated clothing, her posture stiff and formal, as though she belongs to an era long gone. Sometimes, it is a tall man in a dark suit who seems to turn away the moment he is spotted. In every case, the figure disappears before anyone can make it halfway down the hallway. Another hotspot is the stairwell between the 2nd and 3rd floors, a narrow space that echoes with any sound. A number of guests have claimed that, while climbing the stairs, they saw someone standing just a step or two above them, motionless and silent. The stranger appears to be waiting, either staring down or looking away, their face blurred in the dim glow of the overhead bulb. But as guests blink or take a single step forward, the figure melts into the shadows, as though the staircase itself swallowed it whole. The hotel staff, experienced and practical, often dismiss the stories publicly, but behind closed doors, they exchange their own accounts. A night shift desk clerk once admitted to seeing a man standing in the lobby at 3 in the morning, staring at a corner wall. She assumed he was a lost guest and approached him carefully, hoping to offer help. But as soon as she stepped around the front desk, the man was gone, not simply out of sight, but gone, as if he had never been there at all. No footsteps, no door opening, not even a whisper of movement. The clerk checked the lobby thoroughly and found it completely empty. Other employees have reported hearing soft murmurs coming from unoccupied rooms. In some instances, they approached a door after hearing what sounded like a conversation, only for the whispers to stop the moment they knocked. When they opened the door to check for unauthorized guests, the rooms were cold, silent, and unmistakably vacant. Even more unsettling is the recurring complaint from guests who say they wake during the night and feel as though someone is standing just inside their room. They describe a heavy sense of presence near the bed or in the corner beside the window. When they switch on the lamp, the room is empty, but they often catch a brief glimpse of a shadow stretching unnaturally across the carpet, only to retract instantly, as if fleeing the light. Some visitors experience fleeting visions that are difficult to explain. While walking through the hallways, they see a person standing in an alcove or leaning against a wall. But these figures do not behave like ordinary people. Their expressions when visible are blank, distant, or focused intently on the observer. The moment eye contact is made, they slip sideways into the wall itself, leaving behind a cold draft and a lingering sense of dread. One couple, staying on the 3rd floor, reported seeing a child standing halfway down the hall late one evening. They looked away for a moment, startled by the unexpected presence. When they looked back, the child had vanished, though faint footsteps echoed as though someone were running down a distant corridor. Several theories try to explain the Belmont's haunting. Some attribute it to the hotel's aged building that has seen countless lives pass through, absorbing fragments of energy from decades of guests. Others point to the land itself. Before the Belmont was built, the area reportedly housed a small cluster of homes, one of which burned down under mysterious circumstances. Local historians speculate that the hotel's foundation may rest upon what once was a basement or gathering place where tragedies occurred. Whether true or not, such theories only add fuel to the hotel's reputation. Longtime residents of Springfield have their own stories. One elderly man who used to work maintenance at the Belmont in the 1970s swears that shadows in the corridors were once more vivid than they are now. According to him, the figures weren't just watching, they were wandering, lost, searching for rooms that no longer existed. He claims the building was remodeled twice during his tenure, and each time, activity increased around the sealed-off areas. Though he can't explain it, he believes the spirits are remnants of people who stayed at the hotel during its early decades and continued to roam the spaces they once knew. Guests who encounter these strange visions often leave with a sense of lingering unease. Some report that even after checking out, they continue to experience fleeting glimpses of figures in their peripheral vision or sudden chills in otherwise warm rooms. It's as if the Belmont's shadows cling to them, leaving subtle reminders of what they saw or thought they saw within its halls. Despite its reputation, the Belmont Hotel remains a popular destination. Many guests come specifically because of the stories, eager to experience something supernatural. Others arrive unaware, drawn by the historic charm and refined atmosphere. Those who walk its hallways late at night often quicken their pace, unable to shake the feeling that someone or something is observing from just beyond the glow of the wall lamps. The Belmont stands not just as a place of rest, but as a space steeped in memory, with shadows that move on their own and figures that slip through walls without a sound. For anyone who steps inside, the line between the seen and the unseen becomes unnervingly thin, and the eerie silence of its corridors lingers long after the visit ends. The Chesterfield Hotel in Chicago has long been considered a landmark of sophistication and history. Its towering facade rises over Michigan Avenue, blending classic architectural elegance with modern design. Inside, marble floors stretch through the grand lobby, crystal chandeliers hang from soaring ceilings, and velvet drapes frame sweeping city views. But beneath this veneer of luxury lies a reputation that unsettles even the most seasoned travelers. Guests speak of lights flickering in empty suites, elevators that seem to swallow people whole, and the eerie sensation of being watched. The Chesterfield has become a place where time and space bend in ways that defy explanation, and where those who stay overnight often find themselves caught between curiosity and unease. The first warning usually comes in small, almost imperceptible ways. Guest report lights in unoccupied suites flickering repeatedly, sometimes accompanied by low hums or electrical disturbances that cannot be traced. One business traveler, returning from a late dinner, passed by a vacant room on the 10th floor and noticed the overhead chandelier swinging slightly, casting moving shadows on the walls. He glanced at the suite number and realized he was certain it had been empty for hours. The lights dimmed and brightened as if reacting to something unseen, and for a moment he swore he saw a silhouette standing at the far end of the room. When he returned minutes later with hotel staff, the suite was completely empty and calm, as though nothing had occurred. The elevators are another source of persistent mystery. Over the years, multiple guests have vanished while traveling between floors, leaving behind puzzled companions and worried staff. One account tells of a young woman attending a conference on the 22nd floor. She entered the elevator alone, pressing the lobby button, and the doors closed with the familiar chime. Minutes passed, and when the doors opened on the ground floor, she was gone. Hotel security reviewed the footage and found the elevator in motion but empty, no sign of the missing woman until hours later, when she emerged from a side hallway near the mezzanine, pale, trembling, and utterly disoriented. She claimed not to remember anything that had happened, insisting she had been moving through corridors that didn't exist. Another guest, a couple celebrating an anniversary, experienced a similar phenomenon. The husband pressed a button for their suite, and the elevator responded, ascending smoothly. When the doors opened, the wife was gone. The husband, frantic, pressed the emergency alarm, and hotel security reviewed the cameras. Once again, the footage showed the elevator traveling normally, yet no one had entered or exited. Hours later, she appeared in the lobby, standing silently, staring at the reception desk, her hands clasped as if in confusion. When asked what had happened, she could only shake her head, unable to explain the time lost. Even when guests remain in their rooms, the Chesterfield exerts an unsettling influence. Lights flicker intermittently, shadows stretch unnaturally, and objects sometimes appear slightly out of place. A frequent visitor once described setting a glass on the bedside table before leaving for dinner, only to return to find it balanced precariously at the edge of the nightstand, as if nudged by an invisible hand. Another recounted waking in the middle of the night to the sensation of being watched. When she switched on the lamp, the room appeared normal, yet she noticed the shadows in the corners seemed denser, as if condensed into vague shapes moving just beyond perception. Hotel staff have their own encounters. A night shift maintenance worker reported checking electrical panels on the 6th floor when he felt a presence behind him. Turning quickly, he saw nothing, yet the lights in several vacant rooms began flickering simultaneously. He described the experience as an awareness of being observed, and though he finished his rounds, he avoided that section of the floor for weeks. Another longtime concierge recalls hearing the soft hum of a conversation coming from a suite that had been empty for days. When he attempted to investigate, the sound ceased and the room appeared undisturbed. These accounts are treated quietly, shared only among seasoned staff, who acknowledge that the Chesterfield is unlike any other building they have worked in. Some theories attempt to explain the hotel's strange occurrences. Older Chicago newspapers suggest the building sits atop land with a rich history, including past structures that housed offices, residences, and social clubs. Some speculate that traces of human energy or unresolved events from the past have imprinted themselves onto the Chesterfield's foundations, creating residual phenomena. Others propose that the building's elevators and electrical systems are conduits for these anomalies, amplifying experiences that would otherwise remain unnoticed. Regardless of the cause, the effect remains consistent. Lights flicker without reason, corridors shift subtly, and guests sometimes vanish only to return with no memory of the passage of time. Despite its eerie reputation, the Chesterfield remains a sought-after destination. Tourists and business travelers alike continue to book rooms, drawn by its central location, historic charm, and luxury amenities. Some are aware of the hotel's haunted reputation and seek it out specifically, hoping to witness or even experience the strange phenomena firsthand. Others arrive entirely unsuspecting, only to leave with stories of flickering lights, mysterious shadows, and the unsettling realization that the hotel exists partially beyond the boundaries of normal perception for those who encounter its unexplained events. The Chesterfield is more than a hotel. It is a space where the ordinary and extraordinary intersect. The flickering lights, vanishing guests, and mysterious corridors create an environment where the past and present coexist uneasily. Time feels malleable, space feels uncertain, and the presence of unseen observers lingers long after one has left the building. Some describe a profound awareness of history, of events and lives that continue to echo through the walls, while others are haunted by the simple, unnerving sensation of being watched. The Chesterfield's legacy is thus twofold. On one hand, it is a testament to Chicago's architectural and social history, a place of elegance, celebration, and quiet sophistication. On the other, it is a reminder that certain locations, touched by countless human experiences, retain echoes of what has come before. Guests who stay at the Chesterfield often leave with more than memories of comfort. They leave with the lingering impression of a building alive in ways beyond comprehension. A hotel where lights flicker in empty suites, and where the mysteries of vanished visitors remain unsolved, hovering just beyond the edge of perception. The Lakeshore Prestige Hotel in Evanston rises along the shoreline like a monument to elegance. Its white facade glinting in the morning sun, and its grand marble floors stretching from the lobby to the endless corridors above. Inside, the hotel retains an air of luxury, reminiscent of the early 20th century chandeliers shimmer overhead. Velvet curtains frame tall windows, and the scent of polished wood mixes with the faint temps of Lake Michigan. Yet beneath this air of refinement lies a quiet unease, a presence felt more than seen, lingering in the hallways and behind the mirrored surfaces of the hotel's stately suites. Guests speak of ghostly footsteps echoing across marble floors, and of mirrors that reflect more than just their own image, sometimes revealing rooms they never entered, and figures that vanish when confronted. The first experiences often begin subtly. Guests arrive after a long day, exhausted, only to feel a faint vibration underfoot or the soft click of shoes approaching down the corridor. At first they attribute it to other visitors or staff, but the corridors of the Lakeshore Prestige are often silent. The echoing footsteps have a rhythm all their own, moving at a pace inconsistent with human walking. Some start at one end of the hall and approach steadily, while others retreat slowly, fading into nothingness as soon as the listener pauses or turns. One visitor described it as hearing someone explore the hotel, though no one else was there. It is in the evenings that the hotel's peculiar charm grows most pronounced. The polished marble reflects every light, every shadow, amplifying the presence of what is unseen. Guests have recounted glimpsing figures in mirrors, often just a momentary shape behind them, a silhouette of a man in a long coat, a woman with a flowing dress, or a child peeking from the corner of the reflection. When they spin around to confront these figures, the hallway remains empty, and the floor beneath shows no footprints. Some have gone so far as to follow the reflection, attempting to find the source of the movement, only to find themselves staring at a wall or an unused suite they never knew existed. One frequent traveler, a writer attending a conference, described returning to his room late one night to find the hallway bathed in the pale glow of the moon through the tall windows. As he passed the mirror near the staircase, he caught the reflection of an ornate suite door, though he was standing on the opposite side of the corridor. In the reflection, a shadowy figure leaned against the doorframe, watching him. He turned quickly, but the corridor was empty. Heart racing, he glanced back at the mirror, only to see the door as it should be, pristine and vacant. He later admitted he could still see the outline of that figure when he closed his eyes, a lingering impression that refused to fade. Staff members have their own experiences, often witnessed during quiet hours when the hotel is nearly deserted. A housekeeper cleaning the fifth-floor corridors late at night recounted hearing footsteps ahead of her, precise and deliberate, yet there was no one in sight. She described a chill brushing past her shoulder and the faint shimmer of movement reflected in a mirror along the wall. She stopped and turned, only to find the corridor empty. Moments later, the sound resumed from another hallway, echoing as though the building itself had rearranged its internal pathways to guide the sounds. She left the floor that night shaken, convinced that the hotel was more than its physical structure, that it had an awareness of its own. The marble floors, which gleamed so brightly during the day, seemed to amplify these supernatural experiences. Visitors claim that soft, unplaceable sounds resonate more sharply against the stone, lending an uncanny realism to the ghostly footsteps. Some have tried to trace the source, marking the floors with tape or chalk to see if footsteps leave impressions. None ever do. Others have followed the sounds, only to find themselves standing outside suites that have remained locked and unoccupied for years. The mystery is as much tactile as it is visual, a sensation of presence without form, a reality that cannot be quantified. Mirrors in the Lakeshore Prestige carry their own peculiar reputation. Guests have reported seeing entire rooms reflected that they had never entered, ballrooms, libraries, or private suites appearing as if through another dimension. Sometimes these reflections contain figures, frozen in place, watching silently. When visitors attempt to enter the reflected space, they find only blank walls or corridors that lead back to their starting point. One woman, attending a retreat, swore she saw herself reflected, walking down a hallway she had never stepped foot in. Behind her, in the mirrored space, a man in a vintage suit nodded slightly before vanishing. She ran to the end of the corridor, only to find nothing. Her room had remained exactly as she left it, untouched and locked. Historians and paranormal enthusiasts speculate that the hotel's experiences are rooted in its past. The Lakeshore Prestige was built on land with a long history, previously hosting smaller estates and gathering halls that no longer exist. Some suggest that the building has absorbed the memories and energy of previous inhabitants, projecting them through reflections and echoes across its hallways. Others believe the hotel's unique architecture, mirrored walls, long corridors, and polished marble floors serves as a conduit for residual energy, allowing visitors to perceive moments trapped in the past. Despite the strange phenomena, the Lakeshore Prestige continues to welcome guests from around the world. Some are drawn by curiosity, hoping to experience the inexplicable for themselves. Others arrive unaware, attracted only by the hotel's luxury and lakeside view, leaving with memories far more haunting than they anticipated. Regardless of their expectations, most find themselves attuned to the hotel in a way they cannot fully explain, a sense that the building is alive, that its floors and mirrors are not simply reflections and surfaces, but windows into a living history of presence. For those who spend the night, the Lakeshore Prestige offers both elegance and mystery. The echoing footsteps across the marble, the fleeting figures in mirrors, the quiet corridors that shift in perception, all combine to create an experience unlike any other. The hotel becomes a space where past and present coexist, where reflections may reveal more than reality intends, and where the quietest sounds and most subtle movements hold the weight of unseen observers. At the Lakeshore Prestige, visitors leave not merely with memories of a stay, but with the lingering impression that the hotel itself continues to watch, quietly guiding, silently observing, and preserving the echoes of every life that has walked its hallways. The Montclair Hotel in Naperville stands as a striking example of early 20th century luxury. Its stone facade, an ornate ironwork hinting at decades of refinement. Inside, the lobby gleams with polished marble, crystal chandeliers, and velvet-lined corridors. But behind its elegant appearance lies a quiet, pervasive unease and atmosphere that has unsettled guests for decades. Visitors report feeling watched while sleeping, and over the years, a number of vanishing incidents have occurred, often accompanied by strange shadows lingering in the corners of their rooms. The Montclair is a hotel where elegance and fear coexist, and where the line between reality and something far darker seems to blur. The first signs of unease often begin subtly. Guests describe waking in the middle of the night with the sensation that someone is standing in the room, observing them. Some hear soft footsteps crossing the polished floors or the faint rustle of clothing, yet when they open their eyes, the room appears empty. These experiences are disorienting, as if the very air of the Montclair carries a presence that cannot be dismissed. One visitor recounted waking at 3 in the morning to the feeling of eyes on him. He turned slowly, noticing a dark, amorphous shape hovering near the corner of his suite. When he blinked, it was gone, but the sensation of being watched lingered long after. The hotel's corridors are particularly notorious. Many guests have reported glimpsing shadows moving just beyond the edge of their vision, often disappearing when they attempt to confront them directly. One couple staying on the 5th floor described seeing a figure in the hallway outside their door. At first, it appeared to be a man in a long coat, leaning against the wall. When they cautiously opened the door, the corridor was empty, but the shadows in the corner of their room seemed heavier, darker, as if the presence had followed them inside. They spent the remainder of the night unable to sleep, feeling the room itself shift slightly, as if alive. Vanishing incidents are among the Montclair's most chilling stories. Guests sometimes disappear during the night without explanation, only to reappear hours later with no memory of where they have been. In nearly every account, strange shadows are reported in conjunction with the disappearances. One businessman attending a conference was discovered in the lobby several hours after retiring to his room. He appeared disoriented and pale, unable to explain his absence. He described following what seemed to be a figure down a dark corridor that did not exist on the hotel map. A hallway lined with doors that led nowhere and corners that seemed to stretch unnaturally. By the time he reached the lobby, he had lost all sense of time, and the shadows he had followed had vanished. Housekeeping staff have also shared unnerving encounters. One veteran employee recalled entering a guest suite early one morning, only to hear soft breathing from the corner of the room. Expecting a guest to be asleep, she called out, but there was no response. The shadows in the corners seemed to flicker as she moved closer. By the time she switched on the lights, the room was empty. Another housekeeper spoke of shadows shifting across the walls as she cleaned, appearing to pause near mirrors and vanish when she approached. Even the most experienced staff members acknowledged the hotel holds a presence that cannot be ignored. A weight in the air that settles around those who remain too long in any single room. Guests who experience these phenomena often report lingering effects. Even after checking out, they describe the sensation of being followed or feeling eyes upon them when walking through unfamiliar spaces. Some claim they dream of the Montclair's corridors, reliving the strange hallways, corners, and shadows they encountered during their stay. Others speak of an unshakable unease, a subtle anxiety that persists in the days following their visit. For many, the hotel is not just a place to sleep, but a place that leaves its mark, a reminder that some spaces carry echoes of unseen presences. Several theories attempt to explain the Montclair's unusual activity. Local historians note that the building sits on land with a long and complex past. Before the hotel was constructed, the property housed a series of residences and small estates, some of which were abandoned or destroyed under mysterious circumstances. Some speculate that the energy from these past events may have imprinted itself on the building, lingering in the hallways, corners, and suites. Others suggest that the hotel's original architecture with high ceilings, mirrored surfaces, and interconnected corridors creates a natural amplification of human perception, allowing even subtle shadows and sounds to feel unnaturally real. Paranormal investigators have also visited the Montclair over the years, recording inexplicable phenomena. Footsteps are picked up on audio equipment when no one is present. Temperature drops occur near certain corners of the building, and visual anomalies appear in the security cameras that defy conventional explanation. In each case, the patterns seem consistent with the reports from guests: shadows lingering near corners, sudden movements in hallways, and presences that appear to observe, guide, or follow those who wander through the hotel. Despite its haunted reputation, the Montclair remains a destination for travelers. Many are drawn to the hotel's historic charm, central location, and luxurious accommodations. Others come deliberately seeking the paranormal, hoping to witness the shadows and feel the unexplained energy firsthand. For all who stay, however, the experience is unforgettable, and for some, unnerving. The Montclair creates a space where elegance intersects with mystery, where the corners of rooms and the echoing corridors carry traces of what cannot be seen. In the Montclair Hotel, shadows linger in corners. Footsteps echo across marble floors, and visitors may find themselves being watched long after they believe the hotel is empty. Guests who vanish occasionally return, recounting corridors that do not exist and a strange presence that guided them. Each experience is unique, yet all share a common thread, a feeling that the Montclair is more than a building, more than a collection of rooms and suites. It is a living space, infused with echoes of past and present, a place where the line between the seen and unseen is thin, and where every shadow holds the possibility of something waiting just out of reach. The Montclair Hotel is an invitation to witness elegance entwined with mystery. And for those who stay, it leaves a mark that cannot easily be forgotten. The Astoria Grand in Oak Brook stands as a grand testament to luxury and history. Its towering facade and rotund balconies overlooking quiet streets that glint under the city lights. The hotel has long been celebrated for its elegance. From the marble floors of its lobby to the chandeliers that scatter light across its ornate corridors. But behind this polished exterior lies a growing reputation for strange and unsettling occurrences. Guests speak of figures appearing on balconies overlooking empty streets, sudden unexplained noises echoing through their suites, and even the mysterious disappearance of toiletries and personal items. The Astoria Grand has become a place where the extraordinary feels ordinary, and where the line between reality and the inexplicable is thin and uncertain. Many visitors first notice the subtle signs that something is off soon after checking in. One couple, arriving late in the evening, took the elevator to their suite on the 9th floor. As they unpacked, they began hearing the faint sound of footsteps on the balcony just outside their window. When they approached the glass door, the balcony was empty, the street below silent and still. They returned to their room, only to hear the footsteps again, accompanied this time by a whisper that seemed to come from the night air itself. They rushed to the door, but no one was there. The sound vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving only the sense of being watched. The balconies of the Astoria Grand are a recurring stage for the unexplained. Guests on higher floors report seeing figures, often just silhouettes, standing silently on the ornate iron railings, gazing down at the empty streets. Sometimes the figures appear to be watching the guests themselves, or perhaps scanning the city below. When approached, these apparitions vanish, leaving only the faintest hint of movement, or a cold breeze where the air seems heavier than before. One night, a solo traveler, staying on the 12th floor, recounted glimpsing a man in an old-fashioned coat standing at the far end of the balcony. When he stepped closer, the figure disappeared, leaving behind a faint imprint of footsteps that were gone by morning. Inside the hotel, sounds are equally mysterious. Guests report sudden noises that seem impossible to trace. A drawer sliding open, the soft clatter of glass, the creak of doors that no one has touched. One guest staying in a suite overlooking the rear courtyard woke at precisely 2:13 a.m. to the sound of luggage shifting in the corner of the room. He sat upright, heart racing, only to find all of his belongings in their original positions. The sound repeated the next night at the same time, accompanied by a faint whisper that he could not understand. By the third night, he refused to sleep, convinced that the suite was occupied by a presence he could neither see nor escape. Even the smallest, seemingly mundane items have been affected by the Astoria Grand's mysteries. Guests often notice that toiletries vanish from their bathrooms without explanation, sometimes only to reappear in odd places. One woman, staying for a weekend retreat, discovered that her toothbrush had disappeared from the countertop, only to find it later, atop the dresser, as if placed there by an unseen hand. Another guest reported that the soap and shampoo in the shower were gone the moment he turned his back. Yet no one had entered the room. Housekeeping staff occasionally find items in rooms moved, yet when they review security footage, the corridors remain empty during the times in question. These small, disorienting incidents contribute to the sense that the hotel exists partially beyond the rules of ordinary reality. Staff at the Astoria Grand are no strangers to the hotel's strange reputation. A night shift concierge once described hearing the faint laughter of children running down the halls late in the evening, though the hotel was almost entirely empty. When he investigated, the corridor was silent and still. Yet the sound of footsteps continued for several minutes, echoing around corners where no living person could be. Housekeepers have reported feeling the presence of someone lingering near doorways, only to find that rooms are unoccupied. Security personnel occasionally review camera footage that shows fleeting shadows moving across suites, yet no one is captured entering or leaving. Guests who experience these phenomena often speak of an overwhelming sense of unease. The sudden noises, vanishing items, and mysterious figures create a feeling of being observed by something unseen, something patient and deliberate. Many report that the hotel seems to shift around them, corridors appearing longer, hallways slightly rearranged, or balconies seeming farther away than they should be. These distortions are subtle but unsettling, leaving guests unsure of what is real and what belongs to the Astoria Grand's enigmatic presence. Some local historians and paranormal enthusiasts believe that the Astoria Grand's unusual activity may be connected to its long and layered history. The site once hosted private estates and social clubs, some of which fell into ruin before the current structure was built. It is thought that the building may have absorbed the energy of past events, particularly those tied to the lives of former residents and visitors. Others suggest that the hotel's architectural design, with its long corridors, reflective surfaces, and open-air balconies, amplifies sensations of presence, allowing guests to perceive movements or sounds that would otherwise go unnoticed. Despite these mysteries, the Astoria Grand continues to operate as one of Oak Brook's premier destinations. Tourists and business travelers alike are drawn to its blend of historic charm, modern amenities, and lakeside proximity. Some visitors come hoping to encounter the unexplained firsthand, while others arrive unaware, expecting only comfort and refinement. For many, the hotel offers both a luxurious stay with an undercurrent of the uncanny, a space where elegance intersects with shadows, whispers, and fleeting presences. At the Astoria Grand, figures linger silently on balconies overlooking empty streets. Footsteps echo across polished marble floors, and items vanish without explanation, leaving guests with a lingering sense of unease. The hotel becomes a space where the ordinary and extraordinary intertwine, where time and perception are subtly distorted, and where each shadow or sudden sound carries the weight of the unexplained. Visitors leave not only with memories of comfort and luxury, but with the unsettling realization that the Astoria Grand is alive in ways that cannot fully be understood, a place where the past and present coexist in quiet, watchful harmony. The Windsor Royale in Chicago has long been celebrated for its opulent design. Its marble-clad lobby, crystal chandeliers, and sweeping staircases that hint at a time of classic elegance. From the outside, the building exudes prestige, a monument to the city's history and architectural grandeur. Inside, however, a different story unfolds, one that has captured the attention of guests, staff, and local paranormal enthusiasts for decades. Visitors report hearing piano music in rooms long left, empty shadows that glide silently across walls, and most unsettling of all, fleeting glimpses of vanished guests. Wandering hallways, visible only to those who happen to be in the right place at the right or wrong time. The Windsor Royale is a hotel where luxury intersects with the inexplicable, and where every corridor, every suite, seems to hold its own secrets. Many of the first encounters occur late at night, when the hotel is quiet and the corridors are nearly deserted. Guests often awaken to the soft strains of piano music, drifting from a distant room. The notes are delicate, almost hesitant, echoing off the polished floors and vaulted ceilings. Yet, when they investigate, the rooms are empty. One frequent visitor, a writer attending a convention, awoke at 2:17 a.m. to hear a waltz playing faintly from the third-floor ballroom. Curious, he stepped into the corridor, following the sound, only to find the massive room unoccupied. The piano's keys appeared untouched, the sheet music lying undisturbed. Yet the music continued to play softly, fading only when he retreated to his suite. Shadows in the Windsor Royale are just as mysterious as the music. Guests often notice dark forms gliding across walls or floors, moving with an unnatural grace. Sometimes they are tall, humanoid shapes that vanish the instant someone tries to approach. Other times, they appear as fleeting silhouettes in mirrors, caught in the periphery of one's vision. One couple staying on the 5th floor reported seeing a shadow stretch along the hallway, as though elongated by the dim light of the corridor's sconces. When they turned to face it, nothing remained, but the feeling of being followed lingered for hours, a heavy presence that refused to dissipate. Perhaps the most chilling phenomenon involves guests who have vanished, only to appear in unexpected places later. There are multiple reports of individuals walking down corridors or ascending staircases, visible only to a single observer. One concierge recounted seeing a man he recognized from a previous night wandering the 6th-floor hallway. The guest's expression was vacant, almost detached, and he passed through a doorway that should have led to a storage closet, yet vanished completely before reaching it. The concierge tried calling out, but there was no response. Later, the man was found in the lobby, seemingly unaware of how he had arrived there, his watch showing several hours missing. Housekeeping staff are no strangers to these strange occurrences. One veteran housekeeper described entering an empty suite, only to hear the faint plink of piano keys, though no instrument was in the room. Another recalled cleaning the corridors late one night, when she glimpsed a figure moving at the far end of the hallway. She froze, and the figure appeared to acknowledge her presence with a nod before dissipating into the shadows, leaving only the echo of a soft footstep behind. These experiences, shared quietly among staff, hint at the Windsor Royale being more than a mere building. It seems to possess a will, a subtle awareness that allows it to manipulate perception and guide the lost. Guests often describe an unsettling disorientation during their stays. Corridors can appear to stretch longer than expected. Staircases seem to twist slightly, and rooms occasionally shift in ways that defy logic. One visitor recounted attempting to reach the hotel gym, only to find herself walking down a hallway she had never seen before. Doors lined the walls, some open, some closed, yet none led to familiar areas. At the far end, she saw a young woman sitting on a bench, reading a book. When approached, the figure vanished entirely, leaving the hallway as it should have been a standard corridor leading to the gym. The Windsor Royale's reputation for supernatural activity has attracted historians and paranormal enthusiasts alike. Many suggest that the piano music and ghostly figures are echoes of the hotel's past. The building was once a gathering place for elite social events, balls, and musical evenings. It is possible, they theorize, that the energy of those long-past gatherings lingers, replaying itself for anyone attuned to the hotel's rhythms. Others speculate that the vanished guests are trapped between dimensions, appearing only to select observers who inadvertently witness moments out of sync with ordinary time. Whatever the explanation, the experiences are remarkably consistent, passed down through staff reports and guest accounts alike. Visitors who experience the Windsor Royale's phenomena often find themselves altered by the encounter. Even after leaving, they describe the sense that someone or something is watching, that corridors are longer than memory allows, and that shadows move just beyond the corner of their vision. Some return intentionally, drawn by the mystery, hoping to glimpse the fleeting figures again, or to hear the piano music that seems to come from nowhere. Others leave quietly, wary of the hotel's subtle, persistent influence. which lingers long after the doors have closed behind them. The Windsor Royale continues to operate as a premier destination in Chicago, its allure undiminished by tales of the inexplicable. Tourists, business travelers, and curious explorers alike are drawn to its combination of elegance and mystery. The soft piano strains, the gliding shadows, the vanished guests, these phenomena have become part of the hotel's character, a quiet presence woven into its walls, ceilings, and corridors. In the Windsor Royale, the ordinary intersects with the extraordinary. Piano music drifts from empty rooms, shadows glide along walls, and figures lost to time wander through corridors, visible only to a select few. Each experience leaves visitors with the same unsettling certainty. The hotel is alive in ways that cannot be fully understood. Its halls preserve echoes of past lives, musical notes, and fleeting presences, creating a space where luxury and the supernatural coexist in a delicate, haunting balance. For those who stay, the Windsor Royale offers more than comfort and elegance. It offers a glimpse into the unseen, a brush with the inexplicable that lingers long after the final key has sounded. The Shadowcrest Hotel in Rockford stands as a monument to understated luxury, its brick facade and towering windows giving the impression of permanence and stability. Inside, polished hardwood floors stretch through quiet corridors, and warm lighting bathes the lobby in a comforting glow. Yet beneath the refined exterior lies a reputation that has grown steadily over decades, a reputation for strange and unsettling phenomena. Guests report seeing figures glide silently along hallways, only to vanish into walls, and waking to discover themselves in rooms they never booked. Shadowcrest is a hotel where the ordinary experience of travel collides with something far more enigmatic. A place where the line between reality and the inexplicable is almost imperceptible. Many of the hotel's first signs are subtle. Guests check in, settle into their rooms, and enjoy the usual amenities, only to begin sensing a presence that cannot be explained. Some awaken in the middle of the night with the distinct feeling of someone standing nearby. Figures are often seen moving along the hallways, almost fluidly, gliding rather than walking, passing through spaces with a grace that defies ordinary motion. One visitor reported glimpsing a tall man in a dark suit moving down the corridor outside his room. When he opened the door, the hallway was empty. Yet the faint echo of footsteps lingered for several seconds, fading only as he stepped back inside. These apparitions are not always fleeting shadows. Guests often describe them as surprisingly solid, as if composed of the same material as the walls and floors, yet intangible when approached. A woman staying on the 7th floor recounted seeing a figure leaning against the corner of the hallway, facing her directly. She froze, unsure whether to move or retreat. When she blinked, the figure was gone, absorbed into the wall itself, leaving only a faint chill in its wake. Such encounters are unsettling, not only for their suddenness, but for their consistency. Similar sightings have been reported on multiple floors, across decades, and by visitors of every age and background. Perhaps the most disorienting experiences involve guests who awaken in rooms they never reserved. One businessman, after a long day of meetings, went to sleep in a deluxe suite on the 3rd floor. When he awoke, he found himself in a smaller, standard room on the opposite side of the hotel. His belongings were scattered across the room as if moved in a hurry, yet he had no recollection of leaving his original suite. The hotel staff insisted he had never checked into the smaller room, though his keycard worked perfectly in the door. Another guest described a similar experience. After retiring to her assigned room, she awoke hours later in a corner suite overlooking the city skyline. The furniture, the layout, and even the lighting were unfamiliar, yet her luggage had been transported along with her. She reported a lingering feeling of being watched, a subtle presence that seemed to guide her movements while she slept. Housekeeping and night staff have long shared experiences that mirror those of the guests. A night shift attendant described passing through the 4th floor corridor when she noticed a figure gliding ahead of her, moving past walls and corners as though the physical structure itself were fluid. She attempted to call out, but her voice failed to carry. And by the time she reached the end of the hallway, the figure had vanished without a trace. Another housekeeper recounted entering an unoccupied room and hearing soft whispers, only to find the room entirely empty, the air undisturbed. These events, shared quietly among staff, have cemented the Shadowcrest's reputation as a hotel where the boundaries of reality are not fixed. Guests also report a pervasive sense of disorientation within the hotel. Hallways seem to stretch longer than expected. Stairwells appear slightly shifted, and familiar areas sometimes look subtly different. One visitor, attempting to return to his room after dinner, described walking down a corridor that seemed to twist and extend in ways that defied the building's blueprints. At the end of the hallway, he glimpsed a figure peering around a corner, motionless and distant, then vanished into the wall as he approached. These experiences create a sense of instability, leaving guests uncertain whether they are truly lost or simply observing an illusion created by the hotel itself. Shadowcrest has drawn the attention of both historians and paranormal researchers. Some speculate that the building may carry residual energy from its past, perhaps connected to its construction over older foundations or to events that occurred in the neighborhood long before the hotel's opening. Others theorize that the structure itself, with its long corridors, high ceilings, and reflective surfaces, acts as a conduit for phenomena that exist just beyond the perception of ordinary senses. Whatever the explanation, the effect is undeniable. Visitors report an environment where hallways, walls, and rooms shift subtly, and where unseen presences appear to guide, observe, and occasionally relocate them. Despite its unsettling nature, the Shadowcrest remains a popular destination. Business travelers, tourists, and those intrigued by its reputation continue to book rooms, drawn by the hotel's elegance, central location, and historical charm. Some come deliberately to experience the paranormal, hoping to witness the gliding figures or to awaken in an unfamiliar room. Others arrive expecting only comfort and leave with a lingering sense of awe, a quiet unease at what they have encountered. In the Shadowcrest Hotel, figures glide silently along hallways, vanishing into walls as though they were never there, and guests occasionally awaken in rooms that defy logic and expectation. The corridors and suites become a living, shifting environment, where perception and reality blend in subtle but undeniable ways. Shadows linger, footsteps echo without source, and the hotel itself seems aware of every movement within it. For those who stay, the Shadowcrest is more than a place of lodging. It is a space where time, memory, and presence intertwine, leaving an impression that endures long after the final checkout. It is a hotel where elegance meets mystery, and where every corner may conceal more than it appears, waiting quietly to reveal the unseen. The Imperial Marquis in Peoria rises like a grand sentinel over the city, its ornate facade and towering columns reflecting decades of opulence and history. From the moment visitors step into its marble-floored lobby, they are enveloped in an atmosphere of elegance. Crystal chandeliers scatter light across intricate mosaics, and velvet-lined hallways stretch into the unknown. Yet beneath this luxurious exterior lies a reputation that has haunted the hotel for years. Guests report hearing whispers, calling their names, experiencing sudden disappearances mid-conversation, and reappearing hours later with no recollection of what transpired. The Imperial Marquis is a place where sophistication and the supernatural collide, where reality itself seems to bend for reasons that remain elusive. The first signs of the hotel's strange behavior often manifest subtly. Visitors settling into their suites report faint murmurs just as they begin to relax, voices calling softly from the corners of rooms or down empty hallways. At first, these sounds are easy to dismiss, perhaps the hum of ventilation or a distant conversation, but the whispers often carry distinct names, precise and familiar, echoing from places where no one could be. One traveler, a young professional attending a conference, described hearing his name whispered repeatedly from a suite across the hall. When he investigated, the room was completely empty, yet the voice persisted faintly, seeming to linger long after he returned to his own room. The Imperial Marquis is particularly known for its disappearances, Guests have reported vanishing mid-conversation, leaving friends or colleagues bewildered and concerned. One pair of visitors, enjoying drinks in the lounge, noticed their companion slip away while speaking, only to discover that no one had seen him leave. Security footage revealed nothing: no doors opening or closing, no elevator rides, only a sudden absence where presence had been moments before. Hours later, the missing guest reappeared in the lobby, disoriented and confused, insisting he had no memory of leaving the lounge or traveling through the building. These vanishings are often accompanied by a subtle shift in perception. Guests describe feeling as though the hotel itself guides them, nudging them along invisible paths. One woman reported leaving her room for a late-night stroll through the corridors, only to find herself in a different suite entirely, one she had never booked. She recalled hearing faint whispers calling her name, leading her down a winding hallway that seemed longer and narrower than she remembered. When she tried to retrace her steps, the corridor had shifted, the walls subtly altered, as though the building itself were in motion. By the time she emerged back near her original room, she felt a lingering unease, an unshakable sense that something beyond her comprehension had guided her movements. Staff at the Imperial Marquise have their own unsettling stories. Housekeepers report entering empty suites, only to hear faint murmurs or feel sudden chills, as though someone is observing them from the shadows. One night shift concierge described walking down the 12th floor corridor when he heard his name called in a tone that seemed both distant and immediate. As he looked down the hall, he saw no one, yet the feeling of being watched pressed upon him heavily. Security cameras occasionally capture fleeting shadows moving across hallways and suites. Shapes that vanish the instant a staff member approaches, leaving behind only a residual sense of presence. Guests also report more subtle phenomena. Objects shifting slightly in their rooms. Chairs moved from one corner to another. Personal items displaced. Some claim to feel a weight on the bed, as if someone has sat beside them, only to turn and find the room entirely empty. These experiences, though minor in isolation, contribute to a growing unease that permeates the hotel, leaving visitors with a sense that they are not alone and that the Imperial Marquise itself is aware of their presence. Historians and paranormal researchers have speculated about the source of these occurrences. The hotel was constructed on land with a long and complex history, previously hosting private residences, social clubs, and public gathering spaces. Some suggest that the building has absorbed residual energy from the past, manifesting as whispers, disappearances, and strange shifts in space. Others argue that the hotel's architectural design, its long winding corridors, mirrored surfaces, and ornate staircases, simplifies perceptions of movement and presence, creating phenomena that challenge conventional understanding of reality. Regardless of the explanation, the experiences reported by guests are remarkably consistent, reinforcing the hotel's reputation as a place where the boundaries of perception are fragile. Visitors who encounter the Imperial Marquise's phenomena often describe a profound sense of disorientation, as though the hotel temporarily removes them from ordinary time. Those who vanish frequently reappear hours later, confused and unaware of where they have been or what has occurred. Some report fleeting glimpses of other guests who have disappeared in similar ways, their features blurred and intangible, vanishing the moment they are acknowledged. The whispers calling names are sometimes comforting, sometimes menacing, but always persistent, echoing in the mind even after one has left the building. Despite its eerie reputation, the Imperial Marquise continues to attract visitors. Business travelers, tourists, and thrill-seekers alike are drawn by its combination of historic charm, luxurious accommodations, and the allure of the unexplained. Some come intentionally, hoping to experience the whispers, the vanishings, and the subtle, uncanny shifts for themselves. Others arrive unaware of the hotel's supernatural reputation, leaving with memories that are equal parts fascination and unease. At the Imperial Marquise, whispers call out from corners, figures appear and vanish, and guests occasionally disappear, returning with erased memories and lingering uncertainty. The corridors, suites, and lounges are spaces where perception bends and reality becomes fluid. Time, presence, and memory intertwine, leaving visitors to wonder whether what they experienced was real, imagined, or a glimpse into something far beyond ordinary understanding. In this hotel, elegance and luxury mask a deeper, persistent mystery, a place where the unseen watches, guides, and waits, ensuring that every stay leaves its mark long after guests depart. The Lakeside Manor Hotel in Aurora rises elegantly along the banks of the river, its ivy-clad facade and grand archways reflecting decades of architectural refinement. From the outside, it exudes charm and sophistication. Inside, polished hardwood floors, velvet-draped windows, and crystal chandeliers give the impression of luxury and comfort. Yet beneath the surface of its opulent exterior lies a reputation that has grown steadily over the years, a reputation for inexplicable phenomena that leave guests both fascinated and unnerved. Visitors report seeing figures moving along hallways when no one is present, lights flickering mysteriously in stairwells, and being guided toward empty rooms by an unseen hand. The Lakeside Manor is a hotel where elegance intertwines with the uncanny, where every corridor and corner seems to harbor a secret. The first signs of the hotel's unusual activity often present themselves subtly. Guests settling into their rooms may hear soft, deliberate footsteps echoing down empty corridors. At first, these sounds are easily dismissed, perhaps other guests or housekeeping, but the footfalls often move in patterns that make no sense. One guest, returning late from dinner, described hearing footsteps approaching from the far end of the hallway. As she reached her door, the sounds receded, only to resume moments later from a different direction. She opened the door to investigate, but the hall remained empty, silent except for the faint hum of the building's ventilation. Figures moving through the hallways are a frequent report among guests. Many describe seeing silhouettes gliding past doors and corners, disappearing into walls or fading into shadows the moment they are approached. One couple staying on the 4th floor recounted noticing a tall figure moving just beyond the hallway light. At first, it seemed to be a hotel guest, but when they stepped closer, the figure dissolved into the dimness, leaving no trace of movement or footprints. Others have seen multiple figures, sometimes walking together or appearing to follow a path that does not exist on the hotel's floor plan. These apparitions are fleeting yet persistent, creating a sense that the hotel itself is alive, guiding and observing those within it. Stairwells in the Lakeside Manor seem to have a peculiar effect on perception. Guests frequently report flickering lights that switch on and off at irregular intervals, casting long shadows that stretch unnaturally across the walls. Some visitors describe being drawn down these stairwells, as if the illumination itself is guiding them toward specific rooms. One business traveler, returning late from a meeting, found herself descending a stairwell that glowed intermittently, each flicker lighting her path to an unoccupied corner suite. She was certain she had never booked a room and could not locate it on the hotel map. Yet when she arrived, the door was unlocked and empty. The lights flickered once more and then remained steady, as though the stairwell had completed its purpose and returned to normal. Housekeeping and night staff are no strangers to these peculiar phenomena. A long-term employee recalled cleaning an empty hallway when she noticed a dark figure moving silently along the wall. She tried to call out, but no voice emerged. By the time she reached the location of the figure, it had disappeared. Another staff member described entering a suite to find the lights dimming and brightening in sequence, seemingly leading him toward the balcony, where no one awaited. These encounters are frequent enough that many employees have learned to respect the subtle signals of the building, the flickering lights, the soft footsteps, the shadows that move without explanation. Guests often experience a disorienting sense of time and space within the hotel. Corridors appear longer than expected, hallways twist unexpectedly, and stairwells seem to loop back on themselves. One visitor, attempting to return to his room, reported walking down a hallway that he had traveled dozens of times before, only to find that it had subtly shifted doors and windows in unfamiliar places, corners extending farther than they should. Shadows moved along the walls, gliding with purpose, and the flickering lights in the stairwell seemed to beckon him onward. By the time he arrived at his room, He was certain that the building itself had shifted to guide him through a path he could not fully comprehend. Historians and paranormal enthusiasts have speculated on the origins of the lakeside manor's peculiar reputation. The land it occupies has a long history, once home to estates and public gathering spaces that no longer exist. Some believe that the hotel has absorbed echoes of past events, manifesting as the moving figures, flickering lights, and guiding shadows reported by guests. Others suggest that the architectural design, the long corridors, reflective surfaces, and multi-level stairwells amplifies subtle perceptions of motion and presence, creating experiences that feel entirely supernatural. Whatever the explanation, the consistency of reports across decades lends credibility to the notion that the hotel is more than a simple building. Visitors who experience these phenomena often describe a lingering unease that persists even after leaving. Some return intentionally, drawn by the possibility of encountering the unseen. Others arrive unknowingly, departing with memories that blur the line between ordinary events and something far stranger. Guests frequently speak of a heightened awareness, feeling watched or subtly guided as they move through the hotel's spaces. The flickering lights, the figures gliding silently along corridors, and the shifting stairwells all contribute to a sense that the lakeside manor exists partly outside the ordinary perception of reality, a living space attuned to those within it. At the Lakeside Manor Hotel, shadows glide along hallways, disappearing into walls with a fluid grace, while flickering lights in stairwells illuminate paths toward empty rooms. The building's architecture and history combine to create an atmosphere where perception bends, and ordinary experiences take on an extraordinary quality. Guests may be guided by unseen forces, watched by invisible observers, or find themselves navigating corridors and suites that seem to shift beneath their feet. For those who stay, the hotel offers more than elegance and comfort. It presents an encounter with the uncanny, a space where every flicker, footstep, and shadow carries the subtle weight of something beyond comprehension. The Lakeside Manor is not merely a hotel. It is a place where the past and present intertwine, and where every guest leaves with the undeniable impression of having walked alongside something unseen. The Royal Windsor in Naperville stands as a landmark of elegance and sophistication, its stately facade and ornate detailing reflecting decades of refined taste. Visitors are greeted by a grand marble lobby, towering columns, and polished hardwood floors that lead into quiet corridors lined with antique furnishings. Yet behind the luxurious exterior and impeccable service lies a growing reputation for the inexplicable. Guests report ghostly hands brushing against their shoulders, rooms that lock and unlock without explanation, and mysterious disappearances lasting hours. The Royal Windsor is more than a hotel. It is a place where the ordinary intersects with the uncanny, where the very walls seem alive with unseen presences. Many first encounters with the hotel's strange phenomena are subtle, almost imperceptible. Guests settling into their suites often feel the fleeting sensation of a touch, as though someone brushed past them, but turned to find no one there. One couple staying on the 5th floor recounted waking in the middle of the night to the feeling of cold hands grazing their shoulders. The sensation returned intermittently throughout the night, accompanied by a faint, whispering breeze that seemed to move independently of the air conditioning. By morning, they were convinced they had not imagined it, yet could offer no rational explanation. Rooms themselves often exhibit unusual behavior. Guests have reported doors locking and unlocking on their own, sometimes during the night or while the suite was unoccupied. One visitor, returning from a late dinner, found her suite door locked even though she had left the keycard on the nightstand. When she attempted to use the card, the door clicked open on its own, as if responding to an unseen presence. Another guest described a door that would lock behind him while he slept, only to be unlocked hours later without intervention. These incidents leave visitors disoriented, a sense of vulnerability permeating the otherwise luxurious accommodations. Disappearance reports are among the most unsettling experiences at the Royal Windsor. Guests have occasionally vanished for hours, leaving friends or family in a state of anxious uncertainty. One businessman, attending a conference, left his suite to meet colleagues for dinner, only to fail to arrive. Security footage showed him entering the corridor. But then nothing, no further movements, no elevator rides, no sign of his passage. He reappeared hours later in his room, calm yet confused, with no memory of how he had returned. Others report similar incidents, emerging in entirely different parts of the hotel without explanation. Their belongings untouched, but their sense of time fractured. Staff members have long shared stories of encounters that mirror guest experiences. One night shift concierge described walking down a dimly lit corridor when he felt a sudden brush on his shoulder. He turned swiftly, only to find the hallway empty, yet the hairs on his neck remained raised, a palpable sense of presence lingering long after the touch. Another staff member recounted entering an unoccupied room to find the door locked behind him. When he tried to open it, it yielded silently, yet no one else had been in the suite. These encounters are so common that many employees have come to accept them as part of life at the Royal Windsor, yet they cannot deny the eerie sensation that permeates the building. The architecture of the hotel may contribute to these experiences. Long, winding corridors, multiple stairwells, and reflective surfaces create a maze-like environment where shadows shift and sounds carry in unpredictable ways. Mirrors and polished floors reflect figures that seem to exist only in fleeting glimpses, and corners often appear darker than expected, heightening the sense of being observed. Guests often report that the hotel seems to guide them, leading them toward certain rooms, corridors, or stairwells through subtle manipulations of perception. It is as if the building itself is aware of its inhabitants, interacting with them in ways that cannot be fully understood. Paranormal researchers and historians have speculated on the origins of the Royal Windsor's phenomena. The property sits on land with a rich history, previously home to private estates, social clubs, and other structures that have since been absorbed into the current building. Some suggest that residual energy from past events, particularly those involving sudden departures or tragedies, may linger, manifesting as the brushes, locks, and disappearances reported by guests. Others argue that the hotel's design amplifies perception, allowing fleeting movements, sounds, and touches to feel more tangible than they truly are. Whatever the cause, the consistency of the accounts over decades lends credence to the idea that the Royal Windsor is more than a mere hotel. Many visitors describe a lasting effect after leaving. The sensation of being watched or subtly guided lingers, and some report dreaming of corridors they had walked through, unaware of how their mind recalls the space so vividly. Guests who experience disappearances often speak of hours lost and moments unaccounted for, leaving a persistent unease, even for those who visit without encountering any overt phenomena. The knowledge of the building's reputation creates a heightened awareness, a subtle tension that never fully dissipates. Despite its eerie reputation, the Royal Windsor remains a premier destination in Naperville. Its luxurious accommodations, historic charm, and central location continue to draw tourists, business travelers, and thrill seekers alike. Some guests are drawn specifically to experience the unexplained, hoping to feel the ghostly brushes, witness the doors locking and unlocking, or encounter the fleeting disappearances firsthand. Others arrive unaware, only to leave with memories both unsettling and unforgettable. At the Royal Windsor, ghostly hands brush along shoulders and silent corridors. Doors lock and unlock without explanation, and guests occasionally vanish, only to return with memories erased. The hallways, suites, and stairwells become a living, shifting environment, where perception bends and reality is subtly altered. Shadows linger at the edge of vision, footsteps echo without source, and the hotel itself seems to respond to the presence of its visitors. The Royal Windsor is not just a place to stay, it's a space where elegance meets mystery, where every corridor and corner may conceal more than it appears, and where each guest leaves with the indelible impression that they were never truly alone. The Blackwood Hotel in Chicago looms as a darkly elegant presence in the city's skyline. Its stone facade and ornate ironwork evoking a bygone era of sophistication. Inside, The lobby's polished marble floors and high ceilings convey luxury and refinement. Yet visitors quickly realize that the hotel harbors a reputation unlike any other. Guests have reported hearing cries echoing from floors that appear unoccupied, and shadowy figures pacing silently along hallways, visible only when no one else is around. The Blackwood is a place where the ordinary expectations of a hotel stay comfort, security, and predictability are replaced with a sense of unease and anticipation. Where the air seems thick with memories of the past and unseen presences. The first signs of the hotel's peculiar nature are often subtle, creeping in during the quiet moments of the evening. Guests settling into their suites may hear faint sounds in the hallways, soft footsteps, the rustle of clothing, or low murmurs. At first, these are easy to dismiss as echoes or the natural settling of the building. Yet over time, the sounds become more distinct, taking shape as cries, sometimes sharp and anguished, sometimes distant and sorrowful. One visitor staying on the 10th floor recounted being awakened by the sound of a woman's sobs echoing through the corridor. He stepped into the hallway, peering down the dimly lit floor, only to find it completely empty. The sound persisted, hauntingly close, then faded abruptly as he returned to his room, leaving him questioning whether he had heard it at all, or merely imagined it in the silence of the night. Shadowy figures are a hallmark of the Blackwood Hotel. Guests frequently describe seeing dark, indistinct forms pacing in hallways or standing silently near doors. These figures rarely appear when others are present. They seem to emerge only when the hallway is empty, as if aware of the observer's attention. One couple on the 7th floor reported glimpsing a tall, dark figure gliding along the far end of the corridor. When they approached with the intent to investigate, it vanished into thin air, leaving behind only the faint impression of a presence. Others have noticed multiple figures moving in unison, pacing in patterns that defy ordinary logic, always disappearing the moment another person enters the hall. These experiences suggest a selective awareness, an interaction with the hotel's inhabitants that is deliberate and intangible. The cries that echo through empty floors are perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the Blackwood experience. Guests have reported waking to the sound of desperate calls or whispered names, often originating from floors that are completely unoccupied. One night, a businessman staying on the 12th floor was roused by what he described as the distant, urgent wails of children. He searched the hallways, but the entire floor was devoid of life, doors tightly shut, and surveillance footage later showed nothing amiss. These cries often fade suddenly, leaving an eerie silence that is more disorienting than the initial sounds, a reminder of the hotel's uncanny influence over perception and presence. Staff members have long been aware of these phenomena, though they speak of them cautiously. Housekeepers describe walking empty corridors only to feel eyes upon them, or noticing shadows moving at the edge of their vision. One night shift attendant recounted observing a figure pacing outside a locked room. When he tried to approach, the figure vanished entirely, yet the temperature in the hallway dropped sharply, leaving him chilled and unsettled. Maintenance personnel have occasionally found doors slightly ajar or lights flickering in hallways, though no guest had entered or exited. These subtle signs reinforce a sense that the Blackwood is a living, reactive space, interacting with those who move through it. Guests often report a growing sense of disorientation during their stay. Corridors seem to stretch longer than architectural plans suggest. Corners appear in places that defy logic, and floors sometimes feel indistinct, as though the building is subtly shifting. One visitor attempting to reach the elevator described walking down a hall that seemed familiar yet different. Doors and fixtures slightly altered, with shadows moving along the walls in patterns that suggested awareness. By the time he reached the elevator, the experience left him shaken, convinced that the hotel itself had guided his steps through spaces that existed only for him. Paranormal enthusiasts and historians have attempted to explain the Blackwood Hotel's strange reputation. The site has a long and layered history, with previous buildings and structures once occupying the land, including social clubs, private residences, and public gathering spaces. Some speculate that residual energy from past events lingers within the hotel, manifesting as the cries, the shadowy figures, and the subtle disorientation reported by guests. Others argue that the hotel's design, its long hallways, reflective surfaces, and towering ceilings amplifies ordinary perceptions, turning echoes and shadows into something far more tangible and unsettling. Regardless of the cause, the experiences of visitors and staff alike point to a reality that defies simple explanation. Despite its eerie reputation, the Blackwood continues to operate as one of Chicago's premier hotels. Visitors are drawn not only by its luxurious accommodations and historic charm, but also by the allure of the unexplained. Some guests seek the thrill of encountering the shadows or hearing the cries firsthand, while others arrive unaware of the hotel's reputation, leaving with memories of experiences that feel both real and otherworldly. Even those who encounter nothing overtly paranormal often report a lingering sense of unease, an awareness that the Blackwood is more than a building, that it exists partially beyond ordinary perception. In the Blackwood Hotel, cries echo from empty floors, and shadowy forms pace silently along hallways, appearing only when no one else is present. Corridors and suites become living, shifting spaces where time and perception bend, and where the presence of the unseen is palpable. The hotel's architecture, history, and subtle manipulations of light and shadow combine to create an environment that is both luxurious and uncanny. Guests leave with memories that linger, a sense of having witnessed something beyond ordinary comprehension, and the unsettling certainty that the Blackwood Hotel is a place where the past and present coexist. Watching silently from every corridor and corner, the Belmont Grand in Springfield stands as a striking example of classic elegance. Its towering facade, adorned with intricate stonework and polished brass accents. From the moment guests enter the lobby, they are greeted by the warmth of marble floors, sweeping staircases, and chandeliers that scatter light across ornate ceilings. Yet, behind the hotel's luxurious appearance lies a reputation that has lingered for decades, one steeped in mystery, whispers, and the unexplained. Visitors report seeing shadowy figures gliding down staircases, guests disappearing during check-in only to reappear hours later, and personal belongings left untouched while their owners vanish. The Belmont Grand is not merely a place of lodging, it is a living enigma, a space where elegance intersects with the supernatural. Many encounters with the Belmont Grand's strange phenomena begin subtly. Guests settling into their rooms may notice a fleeting movement in the corner of a hallway or feel the sense of being watched without explanation. Some first experiences occur on the grand staircases that define the hotel's interior. Figures, often indistinct and shadowy, are glimpsed gliding down the steps with a smooth, unnatural motion. They seem almost weightless, moving silently, their presence only noticeable in the peripheral vision of guests. One visitor, arriving late for an evening event, saw a tall figure descending the staircase. When he looked directly, the figure vanished, leaving only the echo of soft footsteps and a chill that lingered long after he reached his room. Check-in is another moment where strange occurrences frequently manifest. Guests report vanishing suddenly while standing at the front desk, leaving luggage and personal items unattended. One woman, arriving for a weekend stay, stepped forward to complete her registration and was gone in an instant, her suitcase still on the counter. Staff, though initially alarmed, later discovered her in a distant corner of the hotel, disoriented and unaware of the hours that had passed. Another guest, arriving during a busy holiday weekend, vanished entirely during check-in, only to reappear on a different floor, claiming no memory of leaving the lobby or traveling through the corridors. These incidents create an unsettling sense that the hotel itself influences the movement of those within it, subtly redirecting and displacing them without explanation. The staircases themselves are central to the hotel's spectral reputation. Guests often report seeing multiple figures at once, gliding down the grand steps, their faces obscured or blurred, vanishing as they reach the bottom. Some have described a fleeting sensation of a hand brushing against their shoulder as these figures pass, though no one else is present. Others have noticed shadows moving in patterns that suggest awareness, pacing deliberately along steps and landings, only to disappear when approached directly. Housekeeping staff have shared similar experiences, recounting encounters with moving shapes and sudden drafts along the stairwells, reinforcing the sense that these areas serve as conduits for something beyond the ordinary. The Belmont Grand's architecture appears to amplify the hotel's otherworldly qualities. Long corridors, multiple staircases, and reflective surfaces create opportunities for perception to shift, for light and shadow to play tricks on the eyes. Mirrors occasionally reflect figures that do not exist in reality, and polished floors can make fleeting shadows appear to glide unnaturally. Guests frequently report a sense of disorientation as they navigate the building, corridors seeming longer or shorter than expected, staircases twisting in subtle ways, and familiar areas appearing strangely altered. These experiences contribute to the overarching impression that the hotel itself is alive, responding to the presence and attention of its visitors. Staff members have long learned to navigate the Belmont Grand with caution and awareness. Night shift attendants describe walking empty corridors and noticing shadows pacing at the edge of their vision. Housekeepers have recounted feeling sudden cold drafts or hearing soft, hurried footsteps along stairwells where no one else is present. Even front desk personnel report fleeting sightings of guests who are not accounted for in the booking system, only to reappear later in unexpected locations. These shared experiences, passed quietly among staff, reinforce the hotel's reputation as a space that exists partially beyond conventional reality. Visitors often leave with a lingering sense of unease. Those who witness figures gliding down staircases or experience vanishing during check-in frequently report a heightened awareness that persists long after their stay. Some return intentionally, drawn by curiosity or a desire to witness the unexplained firsthand. Others leave quietly, unsettled by the subtle manipulations of space, time, and perception that they encountered. For many, the memory of the Belmont Grand is not defined by its luxury or decor, but by the feeling of having walked among something unseen, a presence that watches, guides, and occasionally displaces those who venture too close. Historians and paranormal researchers have speculated on the origins of the hotel's strange reputation. The site of the Belmont Grand has a layered history, previously hosting private estates and social gathering spaces, some of which no longer exist. Some believe that the hotel retains residual energy from past occupants or events, manifesting in the figures, disappearances, and subtle dislocations reported by guests. Others argue that the building's architectural design, its grand staircases, reflective surfaces, and long corridors creates illusions that magnify ordinary perceptions, transforming shadows, echoes, and brief touches into experiences that feel tangible and supernatural. Whatever the explanation, the phenomena are consistent, leaving both staff and visitors convinced that the Belmont Grand is far more than a typical hotel. At the Belmont Grand, shadowy figures glide silently down staircases, guests vanish during check-in, and luggage is left untouched as time seems to slip away. Corridors, stairwells, and suites become living, shifting environments where perception is fragile and reality subtly bends. Light and shadow play across polished surfaces, footsteps echo without origin, and the building itself appears to respond to the presence of its visitors. The Belmont Grand is a place where elegance, history, and mystery converge, offering guests an experience that is luxurious, unsettling, and unforgettably hotel where every corner hides a secret and every staircase may reveal something unseen. The Lakeshore Chateau in Evanston rises elegantly along the city's lakefront, its ivy-covered facade and ornate stonework evoking a bygone era of sophistication. From the moment visitors step into the marble-floored lobby, they are greeted by an atmosphere of refined luxury. Chandeliers scatter light across vaulted ceilings. Velvet-draped windows frame views of the lake, and polished staircases sweep gracefully to the upper floors. Yet behind this veneer of elegance lies a reputation that has grown over decades, the reputation for inexplicable and haunting phenomena. Guests report hearing ghostly piano music filling empty suites, and shadowy figures appearing near windows, vanishing the moment they are approached. The Lakeshore Chateau is not merely a hotel. It is a place where the ordinary and the supernatural coexist in uneasy proximity, where every corridor and suite seems to harbor a secret waiting to be uncovered. The first signs of the hotel's unusual activity often present themselves subtly. Guests settling into their rooms may hear the faint notes of piano music drifting from another suite or down a quiet hallway. At first, it is easy to assume the sound is coming from a neighboring guest, yet closer inspection reveals empty rooms and silent corridors. One visitor, a young professional attending a weekend conference, described hearing the soft strains of a piano late at night. He followed the music through the hallways, only to find each door he opened completely unoccupied. The melody persisted for several minutes before fading into silence, leaving him with an eerie sense of being watched and an inexplicable curiosity about its source. Figures appearing near windows are another hallmark of the Lakeshore Chateau. Guests frequently describe seeing shadowy silhouettes standing in the corner of a room or peering out from large windows overlooking the city or lake. These figures are rarely fully formed. They appear as dark, indistinct shapes, sometimes tall, sometimes small, always silent. One couple, staying on the 6th floor, noticed a figure standing by the window as they entered their suite. When they approached to investigate, the figure dissolved into thin air, leaving behind only the faint outline of its presence and a sudden chill in the room. Others have reported similar sightings, with figures appearing only when rooms are otherwise empty, vanishing the instant someone tries to engage or confront them. The combination of music and apparitions creates a surreal atmosphere within the hotel. Guests often describe the piano music as melancholic, a haunting echo that seems both distant and intimate, as if someone is playing for them alone. The notes drift through suites and corridors, sometimes stopping abruptly, sometimes repeating in loops that feel deliberate. One visitor reported standing in an empty hallway listening to a piano playing softly on the 4th floor. The music seemed to respond to his movements, growing louder as he approached a particular suite, then fading the moment he opened the door. The experience left him disoriented and unsettled, yet drawn to the possibility of uncovering the hotel's hidden secrets. Staff members are familiar with these phenomena, though they speak of them cautiously. Housekeepers have recounted entering suites to find doors slightly ajar or lights dimming and brightening without cause. Night shift attendants describe hearing piano music in empty halls or noticing figures standing near windows, only to disappear when approached. One concierge reported seeing a shadow pacing by a large window on the upper floor, the silhouette maintaining perfect stillness until he blinked, at which point it vanished entirely. These encounters, shared quietly among employees, contribute to the hotel's enduring reputation as a place where reality is fluid and perception is fragile. Guests frequently report a disorienting sense of time and space while at the Lakeshore Chateau. Corridors seem to stretch further than expected, stairwells twist in subtle ways, and suites sometimes feel slightly altered from floor plans provided at check-in. One visitor attempting to reach the lobby described walking down a hallway that should have led directly to the elevators, but instead ended in a corner suite overlooking the lake. The room was empty, yet a faint piano melody lingered, guiding him back to the correct corridor. These subtle shifts contribute to the overall impression that the hotel itself is alive, directing and influencing the movements of its inhabitants in ways that defy ordinary logic. Historians and paranormal researchers have speculated on the origins of the Lakeshore Chateau's spectral reputation. The property sits on land with a layered history, previously home to private estates and social gathering places, some long demolished. Some suggest that residual energy from past events, perhaps from lives lived and ended within the building's walls, manifests as ghostly music and fleeting figures. Others argue that the architectural design, the long corridors, mirrored surfaces, and expansive windows amplifies ordinary perceptions, transforming echoes and shadows into experiences that feel tangible and supernatural. Whatever the explanation, The consistency of reports over decades underscores that something beyond the ordinary resides within the hotel. Visitors often leave the Lakeshore Chateau with a lingering sense of wonder and unease. Those who witness the piano music and the shadowy figures report a heightened awareness that persists long after they have departed. Some return intentionally, drawn by curiosity or the hope of experiencing the inexplicable firsthand. Others leave quietly, unsettled by the subtle manipulations of sound, light, and perception they encountered. For many, the memory of the hotel is defined not by its luxury or views, but by the presence of something unseen, a force that watches, guides, and vanishes without explanation. At the Lakeshore Chateau, ghostly piano music drifts through empty suites. Figures appear at windows and disappear when approached, and corridors twist subtly to create disorientation. The building's architecture, history, and subtle manipulations of light and sound converge to produce an atmosphere both elegant and unsettling. Guests move through spaces where perception bends, shadows linger at the edge of vision, and music resonates from unknown sources. The Lakeshore Chateau is not just a place to stay it's a space where the unseen inhabits every corner, where elegance meets mystery, and where every guest leaves with the indelible impression of having encountered something beyond comprehension. The Montclair Royale in Rockford stands as a striking symbol of elegance and historic grandeur. Its stone facade, towering columns, and meticulously crafted balconies hint at decades of refined taste and careful preservation. Inside, polished marble floors stretch beneath vaulted ceilings, and crystal chandeliers scatter light across ornate corridors. Guests arriving at the Montclair Royale are often struck by the hotel's beauty and sophistication. Yet beneath the surface of luxury lies a reputation that has grown steadily over the years, a reputation steeped in unexplained occurrences and lingering unease. Visitors report mirrors reflecting rooms that do not exist, and guests vanishing after glimpsing shadowy figures pacing the hallways. The Montclair Royale is a hotel where elegance intersects with the uncanny, and where every corridor and suite seems to conceal a secret. Many first encounters with the hotel's mysterious phenomena are subtle and easily dismissed. Guests settling into their suites may notice something unusual in the mirrors. Reflections occasionally display rooms or hallways that do not correspond to the physical layout of the hotel. One visitor, entering the sixth-floor corridor, noticed in a full-length mirror that the hallway behind him appeared extended, twisting into spaces that should not exist. When he turned around to investigate, the corridor looked entirely normal, yet the reflection continued to display the impossible layout. Similar experiences have been reported by multiple visitors, some seeing shadowed figures in mirrors that are nowhere to be found in reality. These fleeting, inexplicable reflections create a sense that the Montclair Royale bends perception itself, revealing glimpses of spaces that exist only within the reflective surfaces. Shadowy figures are another hallmark of the Montclair Royale. Guests frequently describe dark, indistinct shapes pacing silently along hallways, sometimes appearing and disappearing without warning. These figures are rarely seen when other people are present, often manifesting only in moments of solitude. One woman, staying on the fourth floor, recounted walking toward her suite when she saw a figure gliding slowly at the far end of the corridor. She approached cautiously, but the shape dissolved into thin air as she neared it. Others have reported multiple figures pacing together, moving in patterns that seem deliberate yet defy logic. The sudden presence of these shapes has been linked to several disappearances, with guests vanishing temporarily after witnessing the movements. Disappearances at the Montclair Royale are among the most unsettling phenomena. Guests occasionally vanish after seeing the shadowy figures, leaving friends and staff bewildered. One businessman, attending a conference, was last seen in the hotel's lounge, conversing with colleagues. He reportedly noticed a shadow pacing near the grand staircase and followed its movement out of sight. Minutes turned to hours before he reappeared in a distant corridor, disoriented and unable to recall how he had moved through the building. Others have had similar experiences, re-emerging in suites or hallways far from their original location, their memories of the intervening time erased or fragmented. These incidents suggest a subtle manipulation of space within the hotel, as if the building itself guides or redirects those who encounter its unseen inhabitants. Staff members at the Montclair Royale are no strangers to these strange events. Housekeepers report entering empty rooms only to feel a presence brushing past them or to notice mirrors reflecting spaces that do not exist. Night shift attendants recount seeing shadowy figures pacing hallways or glimpsing elongated corridors in mirrors. One concierge described walking along the third-floor corridor when he noticed a dark shape pacing near a closed door. As he drew closer, the shape vanished entirely, leaving only a residual chill in the air. These shared accounts, passed quietly among employees, underscore the hotel's reputation as a place where perception and reality are in flux, where the ordinary rules of space and movement are subtly altered. The architectural design of the Montclair Royale appears to amplify these experiences. Long, winding corridors, reflective surfaces, and high ceilings create a maze-like environment, where shadows stretch unnaturally and reflections can distort reality. Mirrors positioned along hallways and in suites often exaggerate perception, making figures appear in impossible locations or showing extended spaces that do not physically exist. Staircases and alcoves further complicate orientation, creating opportunities for visitors to become disoriented or to witness phenomena that feel entirely supernatural. Guests frequently describe corridors seeming to extend farther than expected or rooms shifting slightly when they are not looking, reinforcing the sense that the hotel itself is a living, responsive environment. Historians and paranormal researchers have attempted to explain the Montclair Royale's eerie reputation. The property has a long and layered history, previously occupied by estates, social clubs, and private residences, some of which no longer exist. Some speculate that residual energy from past events, particularly those involving sudden departures or personal tragedies, manifests in the reflective surfaces and shadowy figures that guests encounter. Others argue that the hotel's design creates natural optical illusions that exaggerate perception, turning ordinary reflections, light, and movement into phenomena that appear extraordinary. Regardless of the explanation, the consistency of reports from guests and staff over decades suggests that there is more to the Montclair Royale than mere architectural trickery. Visitors often leave the Montclair Royale with a lingering sense of unease and wonder. Those who witness figures gliding down hallways or glimpse impossible rooms in mirrors describe an acute awareness that persists long after departure. At the Montclair Royale, mirrors reflect rooms that do not exist. Shadowy figures pace silently along hallways, and guests occasionally vanish only to reappear with no recollection of their absence. Corridors, suites, and reflective surfaces become living spaces where perception bends and reality is uncertain. The architectural design, history, and subtle manipulations of light and shadow converge to create an atmosphere both elegant and unsettling. The Montclair Royale is not merely a hotel, it is a place where unseen presences linger, where every corridor hides secrets, and where guests leave forever aware that what they witnessed may exist beyond ordinary comprehension. The Shadowlight Hotel in Peoria rises like a monument to both elegance and enigma. Its exterior, a blend of dark stone and polished glass, hints at the sophistication within, while its interior exudes a timeless charm. Polished wooden floors, high ceilings, and Art Deco furnishings create an atmosphere of understated luxury. Yet, beneath the veneer of opulence, the Shadowlight Hotel has long been whispered about for its unexplainable and often unsettling occurrences. Guests report seeing figures appear at the foot of their beds, waking to find rooms rearranged, or discovering themselves inexplicably standing in hallways they do not recognize. The hotel has become a magnet for those drawn to both comfort and the uncanny, offering an experience that defies the ordinary expectations of a stay. Most encounters begin subtly, in the quiet hours of the night. Guests settling into their suites often feel the faint impression of being observed. One visitor, preparing for sleep on the third floor, noticed a shadow shift at the corner of the room. Moments later, a dark figure appeared at the foot of his bed, motionless and silent. When he blinked, the figure was gone, leaving only a lingering chill in the air. Another guest, staying on the sixth floor, recounted waking in the early hours to find a presence standing silently by her bed. She tried to call out, but the figure vanished the instant she turned her head, leaving her with the unsettling awareness that she had been watched, unobserved, and alone. Rooms themselves seem to act unpredictably, rearranging in ways that defy explanation. Guests have reported furniture shifting overnight, beds angled differently, and personal items moved from one side of the suite to another. One couple returning from dinner found the chairs and tables of their sitting area repositioned, as if an unseen hand had meticulously reorganized the room. They were certain they had left the suite in perfect order, yet the changes were unmistakable. Even more disconcerting are reports of guests awakening to find themselves not in bed, but standing in a different corner of their room or in hallways they could not immediately identify. One businessman described waking to find himself in a long, dimly lit corridor lined with doors, none of which led to the suite he had left that evening. The disorientation was profound, leaving him with an eerie impression that the hotel itself had shifted while he slept. Figures appearing at the foot of beds are among the Shadowlight Hotel's most unnerving phenomena. These shapes are often dark, indistinct, and fleeting, yet they carry an undeniable presence. Guests describe a sense of weight and awareness, as though the figure is silently observing every movement. One night shift attendant recalled entering a suite to check on a light that remained on, only to feel a sudden brush of cold air and notice a shadow lingering at the edge of the bed. As she stepped forward, the figure dissolved, leaving only the faint echo of presence and a lingering chill. These encounters, both terrifying and mesmerizing, are reported across multiple floors, creating a pattern of phenomena that cannot be easily dismissed. The hotel's architecture contributes to its mysterious qualities. Long corridors, mirrored surfaces, and high ceilings create opportunities for light and shadow to manipulate perception. Stairwells and alcoves form natural hiding places for shapes that appear only in peripheral vision, while reflective surfaces occasionally multiply and distort figures, making them seem more substantial than they truly are. Guests frequently report hallways appearing longer or twisted, rooms subtly altered, and corners seeming to bend in ways that contradict the building's architectural plans. These spatial anomalies reinforce the sense that the Shadowlight Hotel is not merely a passive structure, but an environment that interacts with its occupants in ways that challenge perception. Staff members are well aware of these oddities, though they rarely discuss them openly. Housekeepers report walking through empty suites only to feel the presence of someone standing just beyond their view, or to hear footsteps echoing when no guest is present. Night shift concierges have recounted seeing figures pacing silently down hallways, often disappearing when approached. Maintenance personnel sometimes encounter rooms that seem changed upon re-entry, lights dimmed or rearranged furniture that cannot be attributed to previous guests. These experiences, shared quietly among employees, have contributed to the hotel's reputation as a place where ordinary expectations of time, space, and presence are continually subverted. Visitors often leave the Shadowlight Hotel with lingering impressions of unease and fascination. Those who have witnessed figures at the foot of beds, encountered rearranged rooms, or experienced disorienting hallways describe a heightened awareness that persists well beyond their stay. Some return intentionally, hoping to confront or understand the strange occurrences, while others quietly depart, unnerved by the subtle manipulations of space and perception. For many, the hotel's most lasting impression is not its luxury or view, but the undeniable sense that something unseen shares its corridors. watching, guiding, and influencing events without explanation. Paranormal researchers and historians have speculated about the origins of the Shadowlight Hotel's phenomena. The building occupies land with a long and layered history, once hosting private estates, gathering halls, and structures now lost to time. Some believe that the residual energy of past inhabitants manifests in the shadowy figures, movements, and spatial anomalies reported by guests. Others suggest that the hotel's architecture amplifies perceptual distortions, turning shadows, reflections, and minor movements into experiences that feel tangible and otherworldly. Regardless of the explanation, the consistency of reports across decades suggests that there is something unique, deliberate, and persistent in the hotel's atmosphere. At the Shadowlight Hotel, figures appear at the foot of beds. Rooms are mysteriously rearranged, and guests awaken in hallways they do not recognize. Corridors, suites, and stairwells become spaces where perception bends, shadows move with intent, and time can feel fragmented. The architecture, history, and subtle manipulations of light and space converge to create an experience that is both luxurious and unsettling. The Shadowlight Hotel is not merely a place to sleep, it's a realm where unseen presences linger, where the ordinary rules of reality are suspended, and where every guest departs with a profound sense of having been observed by something that exists beyond comprehension. The final haunted luxury hotel in Illinois stands as a monument to elegance and terror, a place where the grandeur of luxury meets the unrelenting presence of the supernatural. Its towering facade, composed of dark stone and polished marble, gleams in the daylight, suggesting sophistication and refinement. Yet beneath this veneer lies a reputation both chilling and enduring. Locals speak in hushed tones about the hotel, warning that shadowy figures glide endlessly through its corridors, that guests vanish without warning, and that some never return. The hotel is known not merely for its lavish suites or crystal chandeliers, but for an atmosphere thick with unseen watcher spirits of past visitors, staff, and inexplicable forces that seem to silently guide, observe, or claim those who linger too long in its halls. Guests arriving at the final haunted luxury hotel are immediately struck by the contrast between opulence and unease. The lobby exudes refinement, gleaming floors, expansive staircases, and chandeliers dripping with crystals that scatter light across ornate ceilings. Yet even here, the first hints of the hotel's unusual nature begin to appear. Shadows seem to flicker independently of the lighting, and distant echoes of footsteps carry through the vast space with no visible source. Some visitors report catching glimpses of figures out of the corner of their eyes, gliding through hallways or disappearing behind walls, leaving only the faintest imprint of their presence. These figures are often indistinct, dark shapes without clear features, yet their presence is undeniably quiet, persistent awareness that something watches from the edges of perception. The corridors of the hotel are infamous. Long, twisting hallways, lined with ornate doors, seem to extend further than architectural plans allow. Guests have reported shadowy figures pacing these halls endlessly, appearing and vanishing at will. One visitor described walking toward his suite, only to notice a tall, dark figure moving gracefully along the opposite corridor. As he approached, the figure faded into the shadows, leaving an unsettling emptiness behind. Others have recounted seeing multiple shapes moving in unison, their movements deliberate and synchronized, as though performing some unseen ritual. These encounters are not fleeting curiosities. They instill a profound sense of being observed, of walking through a space that is alive with intent and memory. Disappearances are perhaps the most alarming aspect of the hotel's reputation. Guests sometimes vanish in the midst of routine activities, leaving luggage untouched and personal belongings behind. Some reappear hours later, disoriented, unable to explain where they have been or what has occurred. One visitor described stepping away from the front desk to retrieve a document, only to find himself hours later in a distant corridor. His memory blank, except for an overwhelming sense of being watched. Others never return at all, leaving empty suites and unanswered questions. staff, and local authorities alike speak of these incidents with quiet caution, recognizing that the hotel exerts an influence beyond ordinary comprehension. The haunting extends beyond visual sightings and vanishings. Guests report hearing whispers from unseen sources, sometimes calling their names or repeating phrases they do not recognize. Doors open and close without cause. Chandeliers sway as if brushed by invisible hands, and lights flicker unpredictably. Some suites are known to trap sound and movement in strange ways, with footsteps echoing down empty corridors or distant music drifting through the hallways, playing without origin. One night, a guest described hearing piano notes from an unoccupied suite. When she approached, the music stopped abruptly, leaving only silence and the lingering tension of a presence unseen. These experiences reinforce the pervasive feeling that the hotel is not a passive building but an active entity, responding to those within it. Staff members have long learned to navigate the final haunted luxury hotel with a combination of respect and caution. Housekeepers report encountering empty rooms where the air feels thick with invisible observers, or seeing shadows pacing beyond the edge of a mirror's reflection. Night shift attendants often note strange cold drafts, subtle changes in furniture placement, or the sensation of being followed by a presence they cannot see. One concierge described watching a figure glide across a hallway that had no doors or windows, its movements smooth and deliberate, disappearing when approached, yet leaving a profound impression of intent. These shared experiences among staff reinforce the notion that the hotel's haunting is not limited to the perceptions of guests. It is embedded in the very structure and energy of the building itself. The architectural design amplifies these eerie phenomena. Long corridors, mirrored surfaces, and towering ceilings create opportunities for perception to bend, shadows to multiply, and reflections to distort reality. Staircases twist and turn in ways that can confuse even those familiar with the floor plans. Alcoves and corners create hiding places for figures that appear only in fleeting glimpses. And polished floors reflect shapes that move independently of those walking upon them. Guests frequently describe hallways seeming to shift, rooms appearing slightly altered from memory, and corridors extending impossibly, enhancing the sense that the hotel itself is a living, reactive environment. Locals offer repeated warnings to travelers. Anyone lingering too long in the final haunted luxury hotel may feel the presence of spirits of past visitors and staff. Unseen forces, silently observing, guiding, or taking those who dare to remain in its opulent halls. Despite or perhaps because of these warnings, the hotel attracts those drawn to the thrill of the unknown. From paranormal investigators to curious travelers seeking a brush with the supernatural, many leave with memories of experiences that linger long after departure. The sight of a figure gliding down a corridor, the sound of disembodied footsteps, or the disorienting realization that time and space have shifted in inexplicable ways. In the final haunted luxury hotel, shadowy figures glide endlessly through corridors. Guests vanish only to return disoriented or not at all. And unseen forces guide, observe, or claim those who linger too long. The combination of opulent architecture, residual history, and the pervasive sense of presence creates an environment where perception and reality are constantly tested. Every hallway, suite, and staircase becomes a living space, alive with the echoes of the past and the movements of unseen entities. The hotel is not merely a place to stay. It is a realm where the opulent and the haunted coexist, where every guest experiences the tension between luxury and the inexplicable, and where the presence of the unseen is as palpable as the marble beneath one's feet. These are Illinois haunted luxury hotels, where guests vanish without explanation. Shadowy figures glide silently along hallways, and whispers of past lives linger in every suite. Ghostly figures may appear beside you, footsteps may echo with no source, and vanished guests may reappear or disappear forever.